going on, y'all?
Good.
Hello. What's
Hi.
going on, Prof?
Hi, Dr. Carr. Good morning. How are you?
I'm fine, Professor Hunter. How are you?
I'm
Uh,
good.
Uncle Jaseneb.
Ankh Uja
Yeah,
Sine. Yes,
yeah.
thank you.
I would. You know what? The Nubians are coming in, so when y'all come in, somebody read my shirt. But anyway, we'll come back in a
Oh,
minute.
do that again. Just pause it
I'll
on me.
wait till they
Quick
get
pause.
in. Hold on. Let's see. Can y'all? I
Yep.
just threw
Okay.
on the shirt. I was in the other room, and I was looking for Equal Justice Under Law, Constance Baker Motley's uh her autobiography, memoir of sorts, and I couldn't find it. And I think I might have put the couple of copies I have, both of them in storage, but somewhere between Philadelphia, because she made transition in 2005. I was still living in Philly, so it's probably in one of those 1,300 boxes I got in storage. So that's unfortunate. I had a lot of other stuff though. I mean, like, this is only a fraction. I can't wait until we have these conversations when I have my library. Then we can have a different kind of conversation, I think.
This is why institutions, as you say, and we were talking before we hit go live about the importance of the iron sharpening iron, the importance of having people in your life that you can communicate with, because living in a silo and even being black in a silo, meaning as a community, that's not the move. That's why this pan-African global perspective that I think we've codified here on so many levels, watching Nduku and on Monday.
Ooh.
I mean, I'm like, this is the really the global majority come to life. And that couldn't be possible without the back and forth. Like
Oh, no question.
people and say, oh, well, well, just all we need is Dr. Carr, and we can just,
Mm.
all we need is Karen. It's like there's alchemy here,
Yep.
and the alchemy is magnified by being in Nubia and that and the Chad and the all, and that's all energy. And I don't think people understand. So, when you texted me yesterday, the first person I heard from that the black what is it called? The BNC, the Black
Black News
News Channel,
Channel.
had gone out of business.
You just demonstrated part of the challenge with them, because here you are, aware of media globally, a deep-rooted veteran who is literally on the air 7 days a week, and be that's their problem. How are they not in front of your face all the time? But anyway, go ahead. That's interesting that you said that. Yeah.
I got the text from you. He said, well, Roland just sent me this, and I was like, get
Yeah.
ready to go on the air.
From
And I was
Roland.
like, do I talk about it on the air? So I'm going
Oh,
through.
wow.
Yes, I'm processing it because 4 years ago, JC Watts reached out to SiriusXM, right? Because he was doing this because before the billionaire was just JC Watts and a few investors, and they were launching this thing, and they wanted
There really are only like 3 black people in the governance structure at that level when you're dealing with, this is another piece of the puzzle. I'm sorry, please. I'm just stunned. Go ahead, please. Go ahead. So go ahead.
So I get a call. We're gonna meet with these people. Want you in a meeting? Da da da. And I was like, okay.
Okay.
So I'm in a meeting, and I'm like, uh huh. But how do it free us? I didn't even know those phrases. I didn't know that phrase yet.
But you said it. It was
So I said, why do we need this? I said, we have Joe Madison,
Black Eagle.
been on SiriusXM before it was SiriusXM,
No question.
15 plus years. We're talking a civil rights activist, an NAACP out of Ohio, Dayton, walked the trail of the Underground Railroad, registering people to vote, registering millions of people to vote back in the 80s and 90s, like this. And then every day his edict before I even got there was, how do it, not the how do it free us, but what are you going to do about it? Like,
Right.
talk is cheap and it's empty mostly.
Especially cheap talk, right? Cheap talk is the cheapest of all.
So coming into the space of radio as a journalist, I'm not an activist. I'm like, how do I carry the thread? Well, what journalism does, what real good journalism does, is it conveys for people and it curates for people what's important. And over a 16-year period, I learned that I could have power magnifying stories nobody was going to magnify. And that was kind of my hallmark, is finding the obscure, not just the obscure, the untold, the unseen, and bringing it to the forefront. And so I was like, how can I do that in a radio space and still be entertaining and do all the things? Because radio needs to do a lot of things, which is why we have Foolishness Friday and other things.
Of course.
But they came in with this, whole, glossy presentation, and they want to be the news of the, and I'm like, well, we do news. Every one of us from Madison on, we all
Right.
do news. So why do we need this? And it's not even better than what we do. So to their credit, I'm like, let me just say, Sirius XM was like, okay, thank you, no thank you. And then I said, off mic, I don't see this lasting long. So yesterday when you sent me that, I sent it to the
You
people that I
called
met
it
with.
back then.
Yeah, because what anybody can see who's paying attention, and it's no disrespect. No
No,
disrespect
no,
to any of the people, because listen,
please.
those checks were good.
Yo,
They got checks to sit in front of that camera and do that
well,
thing.
those checks were good. I mean, quite frankly, and I've done probably, I don't know, maybe a couple of dozen since they've been around. Is it called hits in the media, like interviews, what have you call it? And I was never, I know Mark Hill for many, many, many years, my friend. And I don't know Charles Blow or any of them, but the sister Tashani, brother Mike, who's in sports, is it Hill? I think he was one of the Mike Hill, right? Sharon Reese was in Philly when, she was on the air Philly. But though that's different than and I'm not saying this out of disrespect. I'm saying it because clearly in listening to them, including several of my former students, that's different than those kids that were calling me for the hit or sending me the link. I mean, they're out of a job too. And see, everybody else who we name has other things. You know what I'm saying? This is almost like but I don't know what's going to happen to those kids, the ones who are doing the grunt work, who are doing the, linking up the stuff, who are saying that the link fails. Here's the number, Dr. Carr, link back. Man, and the boy Calm for a minute act like he wasn't going to pay them.
230 people out of a job.
Out of a job,
like that, and didn't pay them for 2 weeks. But
right.
That's neither here. I mean, that's here. That's definitely here, and that's something that and I'm grateful to Roland for making that, like screenshotting the. I was like, oh.
The one thing about our brother Roland Martin, he was never scared to tag you, and apparently he reached out to the boy Khan. He reached out to, and Mark was like, they not getting paid, which he was really what Mark was doing was trying to protect those people who really do need that check. And then even Mark didn't realize Roland went on the warpath because like y'all know what it means to meet a payroll. That's some serious business when somebody can't pay their rent. So anyway, I mean, I'm grateful for you helping us think about this, because it isn't just a story. This is human beings. Please tell us something. What are you thinking about this?
So, I was like, moving forward, and I even had this conversation yesterday, we sit in this space. We have narrative that was born out of In Class with Carr, which I'm so grateful. And narrative, and I, on Sirius XM, I have access to 40 million people every day, and it's this million, which is why there's a level of not just confidence but understanding, because I like numbers. Believe it or not, I'm like into the numbers. I mean, I'm not a math person, but I'm into numbers and money and business. And so I've been watching for the last 10 years the ratings, right? So I can rattle off who has the ratings, and what I've been seeing, what I know, the highest ratings on cable news right now is of course Fox, MSNBC, sometimes with Rachel Maddow, Mesa Plant, but the highest number that they've reached is like 3.7 million. That's not a lot of people, okay? No. And I think BNC had like 4,000 viewers.
Right.
So put that.
The best week was last week with the Ketanji Brown.
They had the most ever.
Yeah.
Put it in perspective, though. You were averaging like 4,000 viewers. So the most ever was what? Was it 100,000? Was it 25,000?
With access to millions, 24 hours a day. What does that tell you? Can you help walk me through this? Walk all of us through this. What does that tell you about the place now of broadcast media, when you have access literally to millions and you get 4 to 10,000 to 100,000?
Well, you tell me. I mean, no. This is why it was very easy for me to say, why do we need them? I know we have millions of listeners on Sirius XM. Now, I wish all of them would come with us over the narrative, but I also realize that we're building a bandwagon. You're going to jump on it when it's rolling. when the wheels, but we need people who are going to help build the bandwagon or help build the vehicle through which we're going to get free. Not a lot of people want to do that. So I also know that, Dr. Carr. So in the building of even narrative, and Carl and your Reyes will tell you this, not only am I frugal, we could do a lot of things here with the lower thirds. I could send a camera crew out. We could have all of the bells and whistles. But why are you here? You're here to get this knowledge, right? And if it's packaged in something really beautiful, is that going to make the knowledge any greater? Is that going to make it any better? So I made a calculated, not risk, because I knew what I knew. Once I sat in community with you, I'm like, we got to spend a whole lot of money doing this. Let's build for the future. So I have, built for us to be here 5 years without needing anything, right? They'll tell you that. So everybody's covered. I'm taking no salary. I'm not taking any money. Thank God for Hunter College, because I don't even really need Sirius XM because I have a full-time job that pays me with benefits. It allows me to build differently than somebody that doesn't have those things. Like, I've always got a safety net. Thank you. And I've been there for 20 years. I got a pension. I'm good. So can I sit in this and build and not have to worry about being super wealthy? I don't need to be super wealthy. I need this to be here. And I need everybody who's paid to get paid and never have to worry about not getting paid. And I need everybody who's in this space to never worry about it going away. We're 107 episodes in Class with Carr. 107.
Haven't missed a week.
Haven't missed a week, through death, through all kinds of things.
Operations.
But there's a commitment to the long haul. This is not about capturing a market share of audience, because that's what everyone's doing, right? So when you see, breaking news is about your algorithms, it's about the clicks, it's about getting the numbers so you can get the advertisers, so you can, and now we're feeding a beast and not the people.
Teach.
So when you come into a space and you're building a media outlet that says Black on it, but it's not really about Black people, it's about, again, grabbing Black people, not feeding Black people, you're going to always fail. Your presentation was all about numbers and this and that, but not about what are you giving us that we don't already have, which means you haven't even done your homework. Because if you were listening to the channel, you would go, okay, what can we give them that they don't already have?
Walk us through. This is, on any number of levels, this is so fascinating to hear you say. I'm listening to you and I'm learning along with all of us. And you're making a very essential point about the nature of, again, the language may be relatively new, but the concepts aren't. That was why we worked very deliberately in building the Africana Studies curriculum framework we built, to have these categories, which are not new at all. The whole point was they weren't new, but the whole point was to give us some tools to be able to see what we have all been doing and thinking in our spaces, and that we can do this collectively. But what you're demonstrating, reinforcing, is the difference between a governance concept and a social structure concept. And in doing that, and you're talking governance in the sense that a cat like Watts, former Congressman Watts, who was raised in, member of the GOP, the Republican Party, electoral politics, which has become the home of white nationalism, which is why I refer to it as the White Nationalist Party, understanding that's a floating signifier, like we talked about last week in terms of parties. The Democratic Party for many years was the White Nationalist Party. That was the home of white nationalism. Now it has shifted most overtly to the Republican Party. But I say all that to say that navigating those social structure waters, and we don't control Sirius XM, we don't control, the broadcast, any of that. Here are some Black people trying to conceptualize a Black concept in a social structure that has been designed to keep Blackness at the bottom of a hierarchy. And I'm saying all that as a prelude to a question I want to ask you, because since I'm listening to you walk through not only that experience and weaving it with all the arc of your experiences, not only as an educator, but as a practicing journalist, as someone who has apprenticed many others, and as a businesswoman, as a business person of African descent, in describing narrative in Nubia, evoking, again, showing us what the governance formation looks like and what its relationship to the social structure has been historically for the last several centuries in terms of Black oppression. A concept that some people might refer to, and some of these academics who write these books talk about, I'm talking about white facing books pretty much, petite maroonage and grand maroonage. Petite maroonage, meaning Black people suffering from day to day, resisting, breaking tools, slowing down at work, doing whatever they need to do to get by, but at the same time resisting. And then there's grand maroonage, meaning what? We escaped. We ran off the plantation. We formed our own villages. We have our places, whether it be the Blue Mountains of Jamaica or the Dismal Swamp of Virginia, where narrative in Nubia, in this social structure environment we find ourselves in, that's grand maroonage. It's controlled by Black people. It's on, and it was never everybody, but two things happened as a result. The grand maroonage made the social structure have to open up and make concessions to those who couldn't escape yet, which is why this is where I want to ask you about this in a second. So I'm coming to the question. And the other thing it did was, of course, it was never everybody. It's never going to be everybody. But what it did was provide not only hope, but a model that could enhance petite maroonage and slowly build grand maroonage. Now, here's the question. Listen to Roland last night, who talked about this on his show. He talked about how when they came to him, they want him to host a 30-minute show, nightly show. And he said to them, in addition to everything else, which I won't get into, he says, Roland, I mean, one thing about Black folk, the beautiful thing about it is we ain't all got to be the same. It's a beautiful thing, though, when we determine we gonna own this. So within that governance formation, Roland says, it didn't even make business sense, because if you do give me a 30-minute show, you got to put another 30-minute show on. So I don't even understand. But the 30-minute show they wanted to follow him with was Larry Elder, which is what leads me to the question. Watching BNC from its inception, its pitches, its initial pitches, which ain't at all what it was before it shut down yesterday, to where it came now, what do you think about the impact of those grand maroon spaces like this one and other Black spaces that pulled BNC from an initial kind of Black conservative white facing thing to where it ended up, which is very different than I'm sure you heard from J.C. Watts? Could you talk a little bit about it? Because I think impact of Black self-determination did that.
I bring it up not to, inside pool or what have you, but just to say that, there was a move to try to get into these spaces before that billionaire, the Jaguars billionaire money came in. And then when the money came in, what I saw was like, okay, we're going to go get names, people with followings. Sure. And, again, as somebody that has sat in the shadows in the background for most of my career on purpose, I've had a bird's eye view of what it takes to build people, right? Sometimes things catch fire, you don't know why. And to be overnight, DeRay McKesson will have 1 million followers with the blue vest. And you're like, where did that come from? Where's Sean?
Remember that?
Yeah.
I love it. Young people have coined this term when they say, I'm old enough to remember, but they're using ironically like it was last year. So we're old enough to remember DeRay McKesson, right? Yeah, but
you sit in these spaces and you go, wow, these people just boom, and they they get the book deals and they get all, and then the governance structure, the social structure comes in and it's like, oh, this person's hot. Give them a book deal, give them this, give them that. Oh, everyone, and it becomes like for me sitting watching it, and then Black people jump on the bandwagon, and I was like, but
that's true.
What are we doing? So for me, watching it again, Black facing model of what already doesn't work, and that's why I'm starting. Ooh. So if you're coming into a space that already is only getting at the pinnacle, 3.5 million a night at the pinnacle.
At the pinnacle, right?
Why would you model that and just put Black people in there? Now, MSNBC and CNN already figured it out. They got Abby Phillips, Laura Coates, Joy Ann Reid, Tiffany Cross, Jonathan Capel. Like they already
using some of the governance formations as farm teams. Because if I look at the more people I see,
come on,
and I like Laura Coates, cool. I'm saying, but she was with Karen, and even with Roland, the amount of people I look at. What's the sisters now on? Is it Tiffany Cross?
Tiffany Cross, yeah.
Tiffany, I used to be that when I would go when Roland was at TV.
Yeah, right.
Tiffany would be sitting right there, and next thing I know, But here's the thing, and Roland made this point last night. And like you, he said, I'm building for years forward, and we're controlled. Plus, both of y'all understood that broadcast media was gone. I mean, it was fast, but anyway. But the point he made was very interesting. He said, and I've seen you do this. He's saying, not only did y'all launch during the pandemic with a model that doesn't work, those other people have billions and they can lose money. And we started walking through how they lose money at Peacock. They lose money. Fox Soul. They're not making money, but they can afford to do that. You'll be out of business. I don't understand. How do we not get that, Professor Hunter?
Because we are, we have not been conditioned to think critically about these things, right? We turn on the TV and we go, oh, Black person. Yay. And we hashtag and we get a trend. We are happy to see us, and I'm happy to see us. So let me just be really clear. I'm happy to see us. Sure. I'm happy for the economy. Let me tell you, the amount of money you make for 2 minutes on MSNBC as a contributor.
Yeah.
I was one for 3 years.
Yeah. Oh.
I bought a house in Florida off that money. Okay. So I'm telling you, it's good money to just sit on the sidelines and tap in for 2 minutes a day Hair and makeup, I get to go out afterwards. I look
You
gorgeous.
make me want to cry.
Hair and makeup is done. I'm going. So what we doing tonight? All right.
You
I'm
make me
already
want to
ready.
cry. I
Car
mean,
picks you up. Car drops you off. You're living lovely, Dr.
why? I mean, why would you do that to me on a Saturday morning? I mean, I can count the times I was told, if you would just put on a suit and
Yes.
just a little different. And I think about all of my friends, I ain't gonna name nobody, but you could imagine who do have those contributor jobs. And sometimes I look at them, I've never said, if only I had. I just laugh because, but the money,
The
how do you,
money.
how do you, you know, one thing I will say, Milana Karenga used to say this all the time back in the day when I was a kid. We were in grad school, we go watch them and they were all crack jokes. He said, if you live, and I'll say house of ill repute. He said, if you live in a house of ill repute, sooner or later you're gonna pull your money out. In other words, you might think that you can sustain, you can withstand, but when you put it that way, Professor Hunter, the most pure of gold mind, because I don't question anybody's motives, but damn, when they making it rain like that, that's one of the reasons why I was like, nah, I don't ever even want to put myself in a position. But you endured it for years and you still engage. How do you sustain yourself?
Once I stepped out of line, they benched me and still paid me, right? So I'll never forget it. And Jon Stewart did a whole ass skit, Larry Wilmer, on this thing that I said, you know, Mitt Romney he don't want to be president of the United States. He wants to be president of Caucasianistan. And because I'm looking at a video and don't got nobody in it but white people, I was like, okay. And then Jon Stewart took that and made it into a whole skit. And there must have been a call because I never went back on the air after that. Somebody told me, don't say it. Don't say it. I was like, I'm going to say it. I'm going to say it. But I realized, I'm like, if I have to not say the things that I need to say, then okay, all right. So for like 6 months, you paid me to not be on the air. That's good. And then in that moment, and I thank them. So let me say thank you to every single outlet that tried to tell me to be different.
How about that?
And then didn't award me with an opportunity as a result of my authenticity. You know that your ratings are up when I'm on, but you can't take what the possibilities are, which I heard this in the room. You can't control me, right?
That's the issue.
So
That's
I
gotta be an issue.
because what it did was when I came into this new social structure space, I played a different game. And that game was build around me. So it's not me at the center. We just keep building and building and building and building and building and building and feeding and feeding and feeding and feeding, which is what I'm going to do anyway. And then let me just lay in the cut while I'm building around me. So I'm not at the center. It's not me. It's not me. It's not me. So you said institutions, individuals can't beat institutions.
Can't beat institutions.
Without even knowing that, the goal was to build institutions. And that should be anybody that's starting a business. Anybody that's starting anything, a movement or anything, it's got to be centered, first of all, on feeding people, but also on building institutions that will protect you from the assassination of the individual, whether it's character or physical, right? Because then everything's done, right? Everything's done if you can get rid of the individuals.
That's right.
But if you build a system, and so I was like, okay, how do we do that? Because I'm going to say something. And I often say on the radio, so support my advertisers. More importantly, I don't own this space. So do know that, at some point, people are like, I don't like what she said because it's happened to me, right?
Any given moment, no question.
So that's how narrative was born. That's how in class. So first it was like, okay, YouTube is a thing. Okay, let's get on YouTube and we can go live on YouTube. What? Okay, we can stream on YouTube.
Genius. In a minute when the whole world was thrown into stop. And people were looking, and isn't it amazing at a moment when we had a moment to ourselves and there was a flattening so that people had choices. It really, I think, which was one of the points I think Roland was making last night, you launched a broadcast network at a pandemic. You couldn't have known, obviously, but then here we are, and people sitting at their computer or looking on their phone can just as easily click this as they can their app for CNN or MSNBC. And what was so revealing, and it's still very revealing, is two things. One, how when you put everybody in the same line, the choices people make. That's why that clean glass of water metaphor we always talk about is so important. And the other thing is how that influences those quote unquote, I guess is it what's called legacy media places. Because I laugh every time I hear the language of maroonage finding itself onto the air, because we know that a hegemonic system, an oppressive system, when it feels itself teetering, will accommodate just enough of that resistance so they can stay in charge. And so I see some of, as again, our friends and getting more bold in these white spaces, I'm like, you're only able to do that because the people have started to choose something different. And these people here who pay you want to contain you, but they've created a space. So I wonder now in 2022, if a Karen Hunter could say, because I'm listening to Jon Stewart say I'm saying, that's because ultimately that's what ends up happening. No matter if it's a Larry Wilmore, of course, no matter whoever gets bold with it, ultimately, as is, whether it be Elvis, whether it be Thomas Daddy Rice, Jim Crow, they're going to find a white man or Bill Maher who's going to say what the black and then you say, well, damn, I was saying, no, don't you understand? You don't control this institution. You've got to build your own institutions.
Gotcha.
I mean, this is so.
More importantly, and then I'll finish because I know we got a lot to get to today.
No, this is actually all part of. We're gonna figure this out together. This is what we do.
Ultimately, anytime you imitate an imitator, or you imitate the colonized, it's like so that's always kind of been my goal to never. I'm not trying to imitate what you do. If you listen to the show, I know format. I have all of the training to do exactly what you do.
Exactly what
probably you do it better.
Do it better.
Heels and backwards. That's it. But I'm like, but when you gave the metaphor, when I asked you this question, I'll never forget it because it actually framed everything that I did afterwards. When you told me and I asked you, Dr. Carr, how do we learn when we were in Africa before we were snatched in on those boats and brought in criminal enterprise? And you said, well, an elder would be around a tree. People of all ages and generations would be in a circle, and they would retell the stories of their history and impart it upon, at all ages, everybody. And I was like, brilliant. Okay.
That's Du Bois. That's what Du Bois said he saw. That's right.
Can I hit record? And every day we sit in this space with all generations, all over the country, all over the world, having conversations that breadcrumbs are dropped. History is at the center. Remembering who we are is at the center.
Connected.
And so there's no format. We're gonna go a minute, 54 minutes because we have commercial breaks here and we have commercial breaks there, and we have to do it in this amount of time. And because this is we just had a conversation which was nasty on Wednesday with Howard French again, and our sister Tanya Pink.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't know what color the wall's gonna turn because I know Tanya is free and Howard French is free-ish.
Yeah. I think, which is one of the reasons why, in listening to him even before Wednesday, talk about what it meant and means to be in this space and to be in a Black space weekend. And I didn't know Howard French. I've read his work for years, of course, admired him, brilliant scholar, brilliant communicator, but I never heard.
I watched in real time because it happened to me with you. Now, actually, it happened way before you.
Yeah,
because I've been in that because they have forced me into the space. And I thank you. Because I could have easily been co-opted. I'm not even going to sit here in front. That money is good.
We could have, all of us,
easily the fame, your name, your lights, the billboards. It's like it is intoxicating. And I'm grateful that they gave me that reality check. That you gonna only be able to go this far, niggers, before we gonna take your ass down. And I'm like, no, I'm really
right.
Yeah, I'm really free. So y'all gonna hear from me again. All right, thank you for the lesson. I watched him like I've never been questioned like this before. Did she just say I didn't go far enough in my book? He was like, I saw him like struggling with it and defending himself, and then he came to a realization that, no, this is right.
You're right.
Right.
But he knew that. He knew that. He knows that.
But he said the thing. He said, well, this is how we sell books. This is, we have to sell the books.
Come on now. Come
on. And the publishing industry is social structure.
Right.
All day long.
until you drop you in there, or Paul Coates in there, or Hakeem Abudi in there, or my man Kasahun Chikoli in Trenton with Africa World Press, which means you walk in a bookstore in DC, New York, LA, Cape Town, Johannesburg, Accra, and Africa World Press books. IDs. What the hell? Yeah. Chikoli figured it, Kasahun figured it out. Bob Chikoli said, and the thing is, those three publishers, Black Classic Press, Africa World Press, Third World Press, they work together. And now Nubian Narrative, Paul, with you, stop paying attention to these people. You ain't got the free.
Yeah. We've been chasing their model as they chase our numbers. So
I mean, hold on, that's bars. Will you please break that down?
We're chasing the acceptance, the book deals, the accolades, but they're actually chasing our numbers. They're chasing our bodies. They're chasing because we over-index. Black people over-index. Anybody will tell you that. And all of the product buying, all of those ads that you see. Now, It's not coincidence. You're gonna see Black people in all of the ads. Jake from State Farm is Black. Like, we over-index. They know that. They got the numbers. So they're gonna cherry pick us to place us in things that we're chasing to be just like them.
I was in our hip hop. I was in our hip hop class this week, and we just finished Jeff Chang's book, Can't Stop, Won't Stop. And we were in chapter, I guess, 18 or 19. He sets it up in 4 loops in terms of hip hop, going back from the 60s coming forward, right? And in loop 4, their final assignment is to do an oriki to hip hop. So we've been building all semester, bringing stuff in. When we discussed the pages where he discussed the creation of SoundScan and the industry before SoundScan, as you know better than I do, because this is the period we're really now we're covering the decade of the 80s and then into the 90s. So of course, Nelson George and them, Greg Tate's at the Village Voice. Hip hop criticism is beginning to be born. My man Carr Katwana at the Source, and talk about the history of the Source magazine, all that. Anyway, long story short, when SoundScan shows up and they put that barcode on the back of the CDs and the albums, and you can see literally who's buying. Rolling Stone, them used to have the rock bands, and this is the top record, this is the truck. When SoundScan came in, they found out country music was #1 purchase in the country and hip hop was #2. It completely but until then, they didn't have a way. The critics could still dictate, oh, these are the hottest. No, these people buying country music and hip hop. To your point, the numbers complete. And you could just see the young people. They were like, damn. So yeah, this was the point that Ken was trying to tell them a couple of years ago before COVID hit, we were sitting there and he was talking about how uploading changed everything and how they just sit back to see which video pops on TikTok and then select that person out, get them a nickel, blow them up while they're looking for the next video to pop. There's no such thing. You can't build a career off of that. And then of course, then we went through the rise, of course, of Lil Nas X. And there was an article in the New Yorker last year about this woman wrote this article about influencers and how this kid starts as kind of a fan and then, and literally figured out, I just need to brand myself. But that don't free us.
No. So that's why now we'll put a bow on it.
Come on now.
Now, anybody that's creating content that really cares about the future of the world and Black people and liberation. Come
on now.
You now have to do something a little different because anybody can chase numbers.
Anybody.
But can you feed people? And can you, because that's sustainable, right? That's for the long haul. That's not right now. It's not sexy. It's not going to get you on the cover of a magazine. It's not going to get you the book deals and all that. So, in this space, I've committed the next 20 years, now 19, to build the thing. Because that's what it's going to require. And if it's one person a day, it's one person a day. And that's enough. Because at the end of the day, we're going to need people who are here for the long haul, not for the flash, not for the money, not for the accolades, but for the freedom.
That's right.
So that everybody can have, so we can all be, show up differently and do all of the things. I had a woman on the show this week who lives in a van. She's #van life. And one of my producers,
a real life person, because they did a Law and Order episode a couple of weeks ago about that.
Black
It's a thing called van life.
Van life, and this is a Black woman who has a whole cadre of Black people who are living in vans, and they travel all over the world, because they just came back from Mexico. And this is she's not even 30, she's 29 years old, and she makes more than $300,000 a year in the tech field. So she's not hurting for money. She could buy a house many times over if she needed to, but she just wanted to simplify her life. And it was weird because after I interviewed her, my Twitter timeline, all of the people were like, yeah, I want to do this. I want to do this. Now, you wouldn't think that that's a Black people thing, right? But as I said to her, you know, we're not monolithic. We're so diverse.
Housing insecurity.
Yeah, but she's not doing it because she's housing.
I know it, but I'm just saying most people wouldn't think of that as something they would do if they had a choice, because the people who are in that situation don't have a choice.
Correct.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, but even, you know, the whole camping and all that, like, we do everything. We just
Of course
don't
we
have.
do.
But they only get us in, you know, we're rappers, we're actors, singers, or, you know, drug dealers. You know, it's like all of these tropes that they push at us. But we have such
we've been curated. Those bars you dropped about 10 minutes ago, you know, they chase numbers. I mean, you know, we're old enough to remember when, which means it happened yesterday. Again, the young people really began to notice because they weren't born into this. We're old enough to remember when Nike and Reebok were running shoes. And then Spike Lee made She's Gotta Have It and had on them Jordans, and those marketing cats at Nike saw that. And next thing you know, they recruit him to use the same black and white shooting technique he used in She's Gotta Have It to get the young boy out of North Carolina, Michael Jordan. And the next thing you know, you got the birth of Jordans. And then, of course, Reebok, which was ahead of Nike. Nike shoots past Reebok, and they're like, we ain't got nobody. So they get the young cat out of Georgetown, Allen Iverson, who has a lifetime deal with another running shoe. But at least those two were for some form of athletic performance. When you said hiking, the first thing I thought, of course, was Timberland. They chasing numbers. We can use black people to sell anything. Meanwhile, we just out here trying to get our parts on. Not to mention, you know, Pastor Cavassier. I mean, you name it. You know, Prada blouse, Fendi jeans, Prada blouse. What
has changed? They brought us here to build an empire, and we still are participating without the change.
Well, let's linger on that in a minute, because my teaching assistant, who is finishing her PhD in psychology, you know, I ain't have TA for many years, but the reason I get this one is because we have about 1,200 students in our freshman seminar, and so they give us a teaching assistantship.
And congratulations to the adjuncts and the
absolutely. You know, it's so funny. I haven't tomorrow Howard University Chapel is going to be in person, and so the dean of the chapel called. They want to have a faculty Sunday, and he asked me to be one of the faculty who's going to speak for 3-4 minutes. And I said, Dean, I'm a little hesitant. I'm gonna say this to them tomorrow as well, because, you know, I love Dean Richardson's good brother, very, you know, just straight down the middle. And I said, but I don't want to engage in any counter programming to some things I don't like about what's going on. And I know you don't like them either. Anyway, I don't want to, you know, put Dean on Front Street, because anything he said to me, he was saying public. But anyway, I'm saying out to say this. The one of the things I'm going to say tomorrow is that if you're talking about Christianity, you have to remember that Jesus Christ, and here we are in the season of Easter, right? This is the few weeks between what they call Fat Tuesday, right? And then Lent and Easter. So this is the period when COINTELPRO has moved heavily against Christ. They have they got him under surveillance. They got an informant who loves money more than anything right next to him. You know, and I'm a bit of an expert on this because I played Pontius Pilate in the church plays as a child. So, you know, whom shall you have me release? Barabbas, a robber, a murderer, or Jesus, the one you call Christ? And then all the 10, 11, 12, 13-year-olds, even the 5 and 6-year-olds, give us Barabbas, give us Barabbas. And I can still see my man playing Barabbas, who looks around and dashes off around the pulpit back out to backstage, and we continue. And then I would ask, and what shall you have me do with the one you call Christ? And all the 7, 8, 9-year-olds and 12-year-olds, crucify him, crucify him. And then I wash my hands of this and walk away. But we are in the season when Christ was being surveilled, when Judas had been bought and paid for, and you know, whomsoever I shall kiss, that same be he Jesus. Hold him fast. So then he goes in, kisses Jesus. The feds come in, arrest Christ, and the rest is history. And I guess one of the things that I got to figure out how to say in 3 or 4 minutes tomorrow is, you got to ask yourself when you start talking about spirituality and an institution that we say we control, when you have to be forced to do the right thing, what does that do to when you telling people you're helping develop leadership to help our community do the right thing? And we can all disagree and should have arguments and disagreements on what's right and wrong or how much this or how much that. But when you have to be forced to do the right thing, you got to ask yourself, what are the values being pressed when you then show up in your best clothes and talk about Jesus, who never owned a house? Van life. I don't know. What would they have called that? Sand life, maybe. I don't know what they would have called it. This is Christ broadcasting from the Sermon on the Mount. Hashtag do unto the least of these. I mean, I don't know what Christ, but you know what I'm saying? But talk about not even having a lot of people. You got 12 cats, and one of them boys is the feds. You know what I'm saying? But I was saying, I'd just say that these adjunct faculty all over the country, because you and I are both, I mean, I am a tenured member of the faculty at Howard, but I also teach at the law school, which is within the field of teaching. But so I know what it's like to be part of a faculty as both a tenure track faculty member and who's technically labeled an adjunct in another space at the same university. So the contingent faculty, of course, when you start talking about people who are across the country not paid a living wage, and they unionized years ago. And it took a public conversation, a public kind of confrontation, and the brink of a strike. They negotiated till almost 4 o'clock in the morning, Wednesday morning. And many of the tenured and tenure track faculty, including myself, many other colleagues, Dr. Beatty, Dr. Walker, so many others, say, well, we have made arrangements with our students. I talked to my students Tuesday, all of them. And I said, okay, so if there's a strike, I will come down and post up somewhere off campus and we'll sit around and talk. That's what we're going to do. But, and your assignments have already been laid out. Y'all know what it is. I may record a lecture. Y'all can watch anytime between the end of the week and this next week, but what we not going to do is not the right thing. And I gave them, as we should always give in conversation. If we talk about education, I gave them, I didn't give them anything. I invited them to have conversations. I wanted to hear what they had to say. And it's amazing when we talk about communities, and you've been talking about it all morning, the relationships. Everybody had parents, everybody has community, everybody has children or friends, which means you never know who you're talking to. You think you're talking to a 19-year-old, but then you find out that child's father is an adjunct professor somewhere else, or her mother or auntie is an elementary school teacher somewhere else. So you think you telling them one thing and they looking at you like, I can't believe you would tell me that, because I know better than that. I know what organized labor is. I grew up in a union household. So you're going to tell me, I mean, you never know. And so the assumptions we make about each other when we're coming as individuals is very different. So yeah, respect to them. And then of course the graduate students, and like I said, I get to have Ms. Carter, because she and the handful of graduate students who we're able to have for freshman seminar in the fall carry over into the spring, because that's how they are able to eke out paying their rent. And although very low compensation. And we see the graduate students unionizing all over the country. American University is out now doing things. Columbia probably made the most headlines a few months ago as they organized labor. And so, but she was telling me they had this whole discussion about what was happening at Morehouse and Spelman with Ralph Lauren. And we talked about that a little last week, but it's something you please jump in, because I want you to.
I mean, everything that you're talking about, including the poor pay for people who have spent their lives wanting to educate people, tells you how they really value education in this country,
right?
And that people are tens, hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to get a piece of paper, when that institution that gave you that paper really doesn't value education. And when I look into the chat in Nubia, and I see so many people with PhDs and the advanced degrees saying that this is the first time they actually feel like they have been educated. The way you are dissecting, and I saw the tweet with Bernice King, Dr. King's
Did you
daughter.
see that? Dr. King's daughter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And she, but every week you are dissecting in office hours a book in a way that is surgical, masterful, and then
Not me,
and then we come together and have a conversation about it. Thousands of people talking about right now, where do we go from here?
That's right. Where do we go from here? Chaos of community. Literally in conversation with Martin King in a way that is not happening
anywhere
in the graduate schools. No, I mean, and this is all due respect. And you don't leave. I'm just going to make this very quick observation. We both know, and everybody who's ever been to a university knows, there is so much brilliant interpretation and scholarship on Martin King that is being done at universities, and maybe several hundred people read it. The stuff wins book awards. You got graduate seminars with 3 people in them. You got independent studies, and they writing these books, and it's great. Hell, I got all of them. That's why I stay, get a little money, I'm gonna buy the books. But I'm saying, how did that free us? Martin Luther King, did you okay, you read what Dr. King said, and you have your own interpretation of racial capitalism. But can we get a few of us to even listen to Dr. King and have a conversation with him? But what that does is that destroys the apparatus of this profit-driven university system. It destroys it. Now, should we get rid of universities? Ultimately, I think the answer in a perfect society would be yes. But as Du Bois said, I saw the perfect system of education. They were in a circle and they had the intergeneral, as you said. But that's not going to happen. But here's the thing: why you got to pay, like the sister said when we were in Hershey? Why I got to pay $50,000 a year? And so what we're doing, whether it be us together reading, discussing, having very insightful and remarkable transformative conversations that lead to action, and then Howard French, who has spent his life in these same structural formations at the top of his craft, recognized by the social structure, like getting pushed because, no, I read what you said. I just spent a month in the Nile Valley. I'm saying you need to take it back to the beginning. You want to argue with me, but you know I'm right. And so at the event horizon, you concede the point, and then because we have grand maroonage, we got a maroon space, you can look at that space that you're not going to leave and say with confidence what we all knew was true, which was, see, that's a business, right? And so, and now the thing that's going to choke this thing ultimately is, and this is where we're going with this, part of it anyway, because this ain't even our objective. Our objective is to be free and help everybody in the world and all that. So, but what the barriers to that kind of thing that are institutional, particularly around education, you can't. There will be people who will continue to pay that tuition. There will be people who continue to get scholarships. God knows, go do it. But there are also going to be people, and then more people, who say, I don't need that. I'm in this space where if I'm looking for knowledge at any stage of my life, if I'm looking to share what I've experienced and read and thought about and discussed and build, that is unnecessary. The reaction then, I think, will be, okay, we got to lower this tuition. Because if enough people do that, Harvard and Yale ain't going nowhere. They're like NBC losing money on Peacock. They're going to keep doing it because they can. But those HBCUs, this is why we talk about jailbreaking the Black university. If you're going to be the Black university, if you're going to be the Black learning space, let's even get rid of Black university, then you're going to have to be that now. You can't be a Black version of these white spaces, because just like BNC collapsed, you're going to collapse. You can't do what they do because the people didn't come here for you to do what they do. And this is the thing you figured out too late. And then everybody gonna come running over the narrative, and we like, okay, that's cool. But what you're not gonna do is try to turn this into what you just left. You know what I'm saying? We free over here. Now come on in.
So what you got for us today, Dr. Carr? We doing
We've already started.
All right.
We've already started. You when you texted me, and y'all know we're always thinking all the time, and I was trapped in all kind of meetings yesterday, so we couldn't walk through the BNC, so we doing it live. But you mentioned a name that, and isn't it interesting, by the way, I got of course with Nduko and Adeseji on Monday from London.
Right.
And
Kenyan and Nigerian.
And for that Yoruba man, thank you, Adesoje, for translating Ketanji Brown Jackson's middle name. Her middle name is Onyeka, surrounded by love. But she walked us through with the color first, gold, yellow. But I hope when they swear her in, they say, repeat after me. I, Ketanji Onyeka Brown Jackson. At which point, like, oh, Onyeka? Yeah, because I ain't heard it once. I mean, it's bad enough that they keep putting that N before the T. Ketanji. But even Cory Booker, when he got in that enthusiastic fantasy rant about America, I love Cory Booker. I do. I love his enthusiasm. We share a birthday. We all together. Y'all know he born on 27th, Professor Hunter. So he with us.
I know. It is interesting. I know
you know him. Yeah, no question. I ain't mad at Cory. Cory love America.
You know what though? It's so interesting, and I know some of us who still want to. I just know, Dr. Carr, with all my heart, when I sit with a person like Gary Chambers, that we could show up as our full selves and still be elected.
Of course,
we don't have to paint this picture. And let me just say, I got an email from a woman who said, I don't have a whole lot of melanin, because that's how I describe my family members. The family members without a whole lot of melanin.
Yeah,
you know what we're talking about, because white is a made up construct. 30% of my listeners on Sirius XM don't have a whole lot of melanin, but they sit in this space and they're not just there, ear hustling, trying to, there's a couple of trolls, but they are invested. When I go to speak somewhere, they show up.
This is what Dr. King is talking about. That's what it's going to take.
Drive from Maryland to see me in Springfield, Massachusetts at a church. And I was like, this woman, Patty, brought her boyfriend with her. And, they sitting in the church and I'm looking around, because what I know is the things that we're talking about, we're not excluding. Like I said on here and on the radio, my love of my people, because I love Black people, does not mean I'm not going to love you too, or I'm going to deny you an opportunity, right? And that's the difference, right? I love us, but if somebody comes in and they're working, and what our staff looks like, what my staff looks like at Sirius XM, people that I pay, I'm not going to say, oh, you're not Black, so I'm not going to hire you.
No question.
That's what racist people do.
No question.
Love you and still not deny anybody else an opportunity, or exclude people from this goodness. We're not saying this knowledge is not. This knowledge frees everybody. If we all come in with that, okay, you learn it. Okay, you learn the truth. Now, how do you apply it to make sure that the world that we are moving into is so much better? And there's no exclusion. But I'm sitting here listening to you, and it's like every day that's got to show up like your full self. And I know it's difficult because you've been shucking and jiving for so long. Stanford and Harvard and Yale and Rhodes scholarships and all of these things, and you clip your speech and I'm moving to a tenement in Newark. I love you, but you don't have to do that. As a matter of fact, that hurt him. Had he just been who he is,
was he somebody else before that? See, I think I get the impression some of that Cory Booker believes. Okay. I mean, not all of it. No. I don't know, but it. See, I don't know. That's Audrey's heart. She loves.
Yeah, I know. Let me be fair. He's not really code switching, so you're absolutely right.
No, I mean, some of it, I think he might be. I mean, certainly when you say my brother John Kennedy, no, that's a white nationalist, bruh. I'm gonna give you the benefit of the doubt and saying you just saying that because you're in the United States Senate and you're not Hiram Rebels or Blanche Kelso.
I think he's being clever to trying to, my brother Tim, like he's calling these people out to try to tap into something that they don't have.
They don't have it, right?
Like this is what I'm saying. Stop trying
that part,
to convince people that they're human and they're not behaving in a human way. So
that part I'm with you. The part that I wonder whether he believed, like he quoted Langston Hughes, "Let America be America again." I mean, let America be America. America never was America to me, but this I vow America will be. Anyway, that was a poem that was out of print in white-facing publications for years because they accused Langston Hughes of being communist adjacent. Remember, they had Langston Hughes get up and testify against Paul Robeson, or something he lived to regret. And he quoted that when he was talking, defending Ketanji Brown Jackson. And I started that by saying that you can hear that N in there as well with him. Ketanji Onyeka Brown Jackson. But the larger point, as you raised, I think is very important. You can show up like Gary Chambers and win. Now, there's been some noise among the, I don't want to call them, I don't know whether it's American descendants of slavery or foundational Black Americans, whatever those formations are, that pushed back because, of course, Roland went after him last week, saying, if y'all talking all that smack about reparations, then we'll go down there and support Gary Chambers. And then I think some of the pushback was, we ain't supporting nothing until we get some tangibles. And my thing is, I understand that. And I don't wade into the middle of that debate. I'm actually testifying next week, virtually, of course. The California reparations bill is up, and I'm on the list of people to testify and supported the bill, and very grateful. Shout out to Nkechi Taifa for being one of the people who, suggested I be one of those people. I'm very due. And of course, I've been catching hell from these descendants of slavery formations on social media, and I don't respond to a lot of it because a lot of it is trolls. By the way, I guess they're still fighting in Russia, right? It's only been a week and a half, so 2 weeks before the invasion, and think they've lost, according to the Wall Street Journal day for yesterday, the Russians may have lost as much as a fifth of their soldiers through they're either dead or wounded, and the economy is collapsing. So there's still a war going on, by the way, y'all. And of course, if you saw what happened yesterday, which is crazy, this is today's New York Times. Taking nuclear site, Russia marches on. They just captured the largest nuclear site in Europe and are getting criticized by everybody. His Financial Times weekend today, reckless nuclear strike. Why? Because the world is like, yo, y'all gonna blow up shit. Y'all almost blew up Chernobyl at the beginning. Anyway, setting that aside, coming back to the point. On social media, people are arguing about, foundational black this and that. I get the passion. I absolutely get it. I understand it. I get the fervor. I get the righteous cause. I even get the opposition to, they want to exclude people who weren't enslaved in the United States because they think they're following a legal theory, trying to develop a theory of lineage. Were you born here? Do you have your DNA? Can you show that your ancestors were enslaved? They think they're playing by rules. Let me tell y'all just very quickly. There's a little word, 3-letter word, LAW. You know what that word means? It actually is connected to a 5-letter word. I think it's 5, POWER. Yeah. The law don't mean nothing when power decides the law don't mean nothing. So the ADOS or the FBA, whatever, these arguments that are being made, similar to reparations arguments generally, or compensation arguments generally, or restitution arguments generally, these are all borrowing from the language of state formations, which is why we talked about sovereignty a few weeks ago, that can shift at any time depending on the power relationship. So I get the righteous cause. I understand all that. But that nativism, that blackface nativism, when it comes to the United States, is informed by a flawed logic. Now, how does this tie to Ketanji Brown Jackson and Cory Booker? Let me say one other thing about this question of, this righteous cause, this descendants of slavery thing. The flawed logic is the same flawed logic that Cory Booker put on display in defending a woman who needs no defense. And it was very interesting because I had several students who were in my classes over the last couple of years at the law school. And all of the students, there were about maybe a half dozen Howard Law students who were present for the testimony. And in listening to them talk about, because when we had class Wednesday night after, the strike was clearly going to be averted, the union had, signaled, they were negotiating late into the evening. And we knew that that the Howard administration was going to cave because pressure busts pipes. It's one thing when you can do it behind closed doors. Another thing when the whole world is watching. In fact, let me just pause right here for 30 seconds and get me some water. But I pulled this water bottle out. See, Black Studies Matter. It's my Black Studies Matter water bottle. The reason I'm going to take a drink at this moment, and it's because I was given this by the students and the faculty at Paul Lawrence Dunbar High School, the Carter G. Woodson Black Studies Academy. My sister, our sister in the teaching profession, Nubia Garima, and her comrades and all the students and all the administrators at Dunbar. The reason I want to mention them right now is because yesterday they got, I think it was their second bomb threat this week, which is just the latest two in a series of bomb threats they've been getting since February. And it has appeared nowhere in the media. So while the HBCU bomb threats have been going on since February, so too has Paul Laurence Dunbar High School, a black high school, the country's oldest high school, college prep high school for black people, in the oldest one in the country. Dunbar sisters high schools all over the country, they've been getting bomb threats, y'all. So spread the word from the governance structure that these people out here acting crazy. So Cory Booker, Senator Booker, like the foundational Black Americans, 8Is, whatever you want to say, like Ketanji Brown Jackson, who called America the greatest country in the world. And some people say, well, she had to say that. And I said, no, I think she believed it. As Nina Simone said, after they killed Martin Luther King, and she sang what become known as the Martin Luther King Suite, and she stopped in the middle of Mississippi Goddamn and said, you know, we loved him because he believed it. He said, y'all need to stand up now. He was one of you. She's singing to the white people in the audience, talking about Martin Luther King, who had just been killed. And we're going to finish this book on the 4th of April. The day he was assassinated in 1968, we're going to finish that last chapter, the World House and the appendix, on that night. So if you're not in Nubia, y'all don't know, but we got over 1,000 every Monday going through this Monday night, which is why it was crazy to see his daughter on social media talking about, that. And then Nubian came in and said, yeah, we're doing 1,000 people. Maybe we can get Bernice in. Who knows, in the next couple of Mondays. But the point is this. As she's singing, Nina Simone says, he loved him. He believed it. He said, y'all need to stand up. She said, y'all need to stand up. He was one of you, meaning what? He's a human being, and he believed it. And she said, then she says, it's too late now. Oh, the king of love is dead. The king of love is dead. I ain't about to be nonviolent, honey. And then she goes right back into the song, Mississippi Goddamn. In other words, see, what y'all gonna find out is, and I think I'll probably wind this into what I'm gonna say tomorrow at chapel in them 3-4 minutes I got, which I got to think about it in my head. I'm gonna do this. As the Muslims say, man plans and Allah plans, and Allah is the greatest of planners. If you are truly into a spiritual thing, then you understand what the West did is put the individual at the center of reality. So we talk about what's good for humanity. It's almost like, well, is it good for the trees? Is it good for the earth? Is it good for the fish? Is it good for the ground? No, human beings were given dominion over all that. Okay, so here we go. We're going down that path, huh? Humanity is at the center of reality. That is not the way everybody in the world saw that. In fact, that is the way a minority of people in the world saw it. And if you see it that way, then the next logical step in the West was to say, well, since humans are at the center of all reality, within humanity, there must be a ranking of which humans are the definition of human and which others fall outside that definition in rank order. Well, you've set yourself up for patriarchy. Because if the center of humanity means maleness in that European worldview, then there's nothing Ketanji Brown Jackson can do to be human. There's nothing she can do. I don't care whether you if you're a double alum of Ivy League, you could be 50 times the alum of the Ivy League. I don't care. There's nothing you can do. Rafael Cruz, who said, I'm a Hispanic man. And I wish I could. See, I already got Fulani, Somali, Ethiopian lips. So they not, the beautiful lips of the Igbo or the Yoruba, and typically we would associate. But I can't even make my lips as thin as Ted Cruz's, but I'm going to try. Even these little, Fulani lips, as Professor Ajayi's wife, when he was at Ohio State, Professor Ade Ajayi is one of the most important historians of the 20th century. He's an ancestor now. His wife came to Ohio State. This was maybe 1989, maybe 90, 91. I don't remember. And we were hosting them. We were at the Black Culture Center, and she looked at me and she said, "Oh, you Fulani?" I said, "I don't know. Nana, would have been nice to trace that, And she said, "No, you Fulani. Small eyes, small nose, small lip, Fulani." I can't tell you how good, because people taking, they ain't got to take no damn DNA tests. You go talk to some Africans. You see Africa all over the world. Anyway, but even I can't make my lips that small. Ted Cruz, I'm a Hispanic man. And I could tuck my chin in, but I can't do that either. Why these people ain't got no chin? Tom Cotton and Josh Hawley. Black Thought said first ones to fall is cats with no chin. But anyway, I'm a Hispanic man. Can I say I'm an Asian man? Okay. people getting caught up with what Ted Cruz didn't say, it's like that scene in The Nutty Professor when they stand at the buffet at the end, and Eddie Murphy dressed as Clump's mother says to Eddie Murphy dressed as Clump's father, Cletus, and then he looked at her and said, you think I'll be listening to you? I don't be listening to you. That's how y'all need to treat Cruz, Hawley, all them cats. What's that corn pone cat that somebody looked like hit him in the chin and pushed this bottom part of his mouth? He got that oral right. He's from Nebraska. Oh yeah, Ben Sass. Ben Sass said you're eminently qualified, but sadly I can't vote for you. Y'all know Ben Sass is a white nationalist. He just comes with it all shucks. So he came out yesterday talking about he can't vote for. Of course, then y'all look up for Susan Collins. She ain't gonna vote in. And she voted for Kavanaugh, Mr. Beer, sexual assault accused Kavanaugh, but she ain't gonna vote for Ketanji. These are white nationalists. You speaking a language they don't understand, Cory. But I raise all that to say that Cory Booker, I ain't mad at him. In a patriarchal white chamber, in a patriarchal white society that is an apartheid society. It has always been a settler society that was set up by its founders to be a perpetual settler society. Let me pause and be very clear about what I mean in that. And refer y'all to a little book I think is going to be very useful for folks. It's a cheap little book. It came out last year. It's called The Agenda. The Agenda. How a Republican Supreme Court is reshaping America. Ian Millhiser, John Roberts with his back to the camera. Millhiser, there he is right there. He's a senior correspondent at Vox. Have you? I don't know. You may have interviewed him because it's been out.
I have not, but you just gave me. I sit here with a notepad.
Oh yeah, no. This is actually it's very good. You know why I like this book for people generally? It is very short. It's excluding the footnotes, 113 pages. The pages are short and brief. This actually might be an interesting book for us to read because I think anyway, let me not go too far. Millhiser makes a number of interesting points in this book, and I'm going to narrate them differently than he makes. In fact, let me just let him speak for himself and then come to this. One of the things that he talks about is that, of course, we know this today. In fact, let me just say that. He says this is the last thing he writes in his further reading section, which is actually right before the notes on page 115. He says, if the United States is to emerge from this era of acrimony and non-governance, then we must evolve toward a constitutional system that fears dysfunction at least as much as it fears government action. We must have a court that does not confuse stagnation with liberty. And above all, we must have a Senate that does not treat a voter in Wyoming as 68 times more valuable than a voter in California. Because that's what the Senate is set up to do. 2 senators per state. And nobody lives in Wyoming. Everybody lives in California. Wyoming got 2 senators. California got 2 senators. Now, people say, look at that. We got to fix that. No, it's already fixed. It's called settler-colonialism. These white boys set up the criminal enterprise to always be in control. The only fights they have, well, not the only fights, the biggest fights they have is among themselves. This is Derek Bell's point. In fact, Ted Cruz. Can babies be racist? Can babies be racist? And then, you know what? Karen, I had to laugh. Because I know Ibram Kendi. He's a friend of mine. When that fool held up Anti-Racist Baby, you know what you did, Ted, right? Anti-Racist Baby shot up to the #1 book sale in the country. Ted Cruz, I mean, some of these people are playing dumb. But I think Ted Cruz actually stupid. I think he is stupid, which, like Josh Hawley. I think Josh Hawley actually stupid too. He racist as hell, but he's stupid too. I mean, now these cats got Ivy League degrees, which tells you all you need to know about the Ivy League you paying money to.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And this is not criticizing the faculty at the Ivy League, because the faculty at the Ivy League don't teach the students. Those are those underpaid TAs. and those contingent faculty people at the state schools and those other schools that are lower tier. And meanwhile, you got the American Negro trying to crawl their way up into the Black Ivy, which is why Miss Carter and her friends were debating whether or not this Ralph Lauren tribute to Morehouse and Spelman we talked about, which ain't no tribute at all, but another marketing scheme, because as we just heard Professor Hunter say, they count numbers. In fact, she told me before class Thursday morning, she walking down the street, 14th Street in DC, and seen the poster. You know how they take those papers and plaster them on the side of construction sites and you can't peel the poster off, whatever, of a Foursquare with pictures of the Morehouse men in the Ralph Lauren stuff. They already selling it. Ain't no, how is it, if it's a tribute, you made clothes only for them and you gave it to them. Ain't no tribute. You made them take pictures with the clothes, gave them a discount, maybe let them keep the clothes you had to shoot on, maybe threw in a couple of dollars worth of scholarship, and now you're going to sell them clothes all over the damn universe. The Martians going to be wearing them clothes. But it's a tribute, right? Shit, come on now. But Negroes, some celebrating, which made me dig out my copy of a book that came out a little while ago, a few months ago, called Black Ivy. There's Miles, Jason Jules, and Graham Marsh, A Revolt in Style. Is it a revolt? But here's the thing, where they seduce you, right? Because I love this book. It is a story of, particularly the 20th century, how Black men, there's Baraka, Amiri Baraka, you know, even the respectability of the Freedom Riders, the Corps, got to wear your suits and ties. Everybody looking cool. There's John Coltrane. Everybody look the birth of cool. Miles Davis. Here go people at the March on Washington. In literature, you see everybody, you know, it's Ted Jones. There's Baraka again looking cool. There's Ralph Ellison looking. You got to admit, everybody looking cool. James Baldwin, Alex Haley in the arts, Become Your Own Witness. You see the people there. There goes Charles White, the great artist, looking cool. Everybody looking cool. Jacob Lawrence looking cool. Gordon Parks looking cool. You got, now they got a piece on education too. Let me run to that right quick because I'm gonna tie it together. All this stuff. We coming to Ketanji. We ain't left Ketanji, quite frankly, because we're talking about, can you make yourself into somebody who will be respectable? Before I do that, let me go to politics. March on Washington, Poitier and Belafonte looking cool. I mean, hey, we make everything look good now. It tutu, as the Yoruba people would say, coolness. But the point I want to raise though is as it relates to education. Bob Moses looking cool, you know what I'm saying? Even Kwame Ture, Sterling Carmichael, they got him in overalls and in a certain tie. My man Walter Fontroy still around, Adam Clayton Powell. Let me stop because we're going all over this. Here we go. Couple of things. There's Dr. King looking cool. Does anybody know who that is next to Martin King? Here go Martin King on the campus of Morehouse in the middle is Y.T. Walker. There's the man, not James Foreman, James Lawson, who's still around. But look at this young cat right here. He's over here in this side looking at Dr. King. And then here he is sitting at the bottom step. That's Marion Barry. My point is that.
Wait, show that again.
Yeah, because Marion Barry was in school. He's an alpha. He's an alphas. I'm an alpha out of Mississippi. Marion Barry, there he is with Dr. King. Can't nobody deny them cats look cool because that was how you dressed, and we're gonna make it look good. Now Ralph Lauren done gone back to the yearbooks and got out, even in the middle of white supremacy. There they are in Alabama, a block from Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in Montgomery. And by the way, have you interviewed anybody in the cast of this remake of the Wonder Years yet, Professor Hunter?
Not for the Wonder Years.
Okay, yeah, because I'll shoot you. Of course, those actors, many of them. Because the sister who plays the daughter was in Black Lightning, right? Mm-hmm. And then the brother who plays the father, what's his name? Dule Hill.
Dule Hill and his wife was also an actress.
That is, I didn't watch the Wonder Years, and I don't want to watch the Blackface Wonder Years. But the thing with Don Cheadle doing the voiceovers, I caught myself watching an episode, and then I got intrigued enough to watch several because
Me too.
Say it again.
Me too. Same.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's when we came of age. Mm-hmm. So there's so much, and they're in Montgomery. In the episode where they had the church lock in, and they standing outside, I said, "Damn, that look like the balcony of that is." That's Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. That's Dr. King's church. It's a block from Montgomery State Capitol. Any of y'all have been to Montgomery, y'all know that. So, or parenthetically, I'm gonna say this right quick in 20 seconds and go on. You talk about van life. When I watched that Law and Order episode, I was thinking to myself, and I'm gonna say it out my mouth right now, just like I said last week, I think it was, when just before COVID hit, we were in freshman seminar, and I said, we get an A team together. I may take 25, 30 of y'all. We're gonna go down through the South. I really want to do that. I mean, in other words, maybe we should have in class. We've been talking about doing in class on the road. But as I was watching them in front of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church in this scene from the Wonder Years, as the boy and the girl trying to get at each other because they kissed in the church lock-in, I'm saying, boy, y'all bringing back memories. But I'm saying,
wait, we can get a tour bus, Dr. Carr, you be on?
Yeah, we need it. It had to be real tight, but we're broadcasting wherever we are. I've been thinking about that in some ways since the brother and sister went live when we were in the early days.
Shout out to Wendy Washington, my buddy who does she does this This Is Dope. She's got a business. I'm gonna call her as soon as we get off this thing.
Oh yeah. Look, seriously, we're gonna figure that out. I was thinking that we can get a couple of weeks, in a nice intergenerational thing, set up that thing we want to do, and then everywhere we stop, we be with the people. My sister Kalita Nichols, Fairfax, who in Virginia is on the state commission for historical markers and historical men. We get to South Carolina, go, Penn Center, Georgia. I remember saying, Alabama, we want to do. I'm just because here's King in the shadow of the Confederacy at the damn capital of the Confederacy, cradle of the Confederacy, with the Confederate flag and the Alabama flag flying out the state capitol, sitting right in front of a block of marble in the middle of the street, half a block from Dexter Avenue, that says, this is where Dixie was first played in public. I've stood on at that point and spit on that marble more times than I can count. But anyway, there he is in the suit. Look at, everybody got on a suit. But the point is that Ralph Lauren is looking through, look, even the people who criticize, who would say Cory Booker was clowning. I'm sure he would say that if he were still here physically. Malcolm X got on a suit. Everybody looking fly. But even in that process, there he is again, of course, with a suit. Everybody, Black Ivy, right? Black Ivy. The Nation of Islam ain't nothing but clean. These cats in front of Muhammad's Temple number 2. They doing that. Of course, Temple number 2 in the city they refer to in the Nation of Islam as Medina. Y'all know, because Mecca would be Detroit. That's Temple number 1, that Detroit history. Some of y'all know about that. But at any rate, the reason I'm bringing all this up is because I didn't mark the page, and I should have. They have a piece in here about Morehouse, and they're talking about in education. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. If I can find it quickly, I'll go on. If I can't, I won't. Oh, no. Oh, come on, son. Give me about 10 more seconds. If I can't, I'm gonna make another point using another piece in here that I just went past. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to find it quickly. That's okay. I was gonna show y'all Morehouse is in here, and they talk about the style at Morehouse and all that. They talk about the politicians. There's Ed Brooke. Of course, when Cory Booker said I'm the 4th elected senator, I started doing my math, and I said, okay, is he not counting Blanche Kelso Bruce and Hiram Revels? He's probably not counting them, because that's number 1 and 2, Mississippi, 19th century. Then you have Ed Brooke, of course.
Massachusetts.
That makes it 3, which would make him 4. And then I thought, wait a minute, was Carol Moseley Braun elected? I thought she was appointed to fill out the term. So she never ran for, that would make him 5th. And then of course you don't count Burris, because Burris was appointed. But then Barack Obama would be 5th. That would make you 6th. So I don't know. I guess he was trying to make a point with his math. But anyway, the point is that Ed Brooke was the one. Right here he is in a suit, and so I know what Cory was trying to do. I know he's trying to do. Hell, I mean, even Lou Alcindor, even Muhammad Ali. Got Muhammad Ali's in here as well. But the point I wanted to make though is that in the back end, they started talking about how, hey, business picked up on it. Coca-Cola. We remember these ads growing up. 7-Up, the Negroes. There are whole books that have been written about this marketing campaign. Marlboro. My man got on the suit. Everything is cool. Hell, they'll even sell you overalls if it ain't just Timberlands and Nikes, But the point is, they counting numbers, as we just heard Professor Hunter say. And I raised all that to say, in this context of Black Ivy, that the Black Ivy, Morehouse, Spelman, Howard, which is the point he makes in the page I couldn't find in a rush, but it's cool. They really become, in many ways, Black imitations of the white framework, even as they maintain their own identities and make the white framework even cooler, right? And I had suits. My suits look like those suits. When I was an undergrad at Tennessee State, we get up on a Saturday morning and raid the thrift stores in the white communities. Why? Because these rich white people, we had all the skinny suits, the shiny suits, had the Malcolm X ties, and all that stuff, bow ties. In law school, I went from skinny tie to the bow tie. I'm gonna wear the bow tie. I'm influenced by the Nation of Islam. It's all good. And then shortly thereafter, I said, I'm not wearing a tie again. But when I was going to work every day and walk in the classroom at a HBCU, I'm not wearing a tie. But I am gonna wear some hard shoes, some slacks, and a dashiki. And the dashiki is not an African dress that goes back to ancient or medieval Africa or pre-enslavement Africa or even early enslavement Africa or colonial. It is something that was invented over the last century by people engaged in trying to westernized dress, which is why so many of the dresses in Africa are with fabrics that come from Europe. All that lace that people make dresses of in Nigeria and Ghana that comes from Europe. But so understand that things change, cultures bleed. In many ways, identity can become very political and very problematic. But the point I'm trying to make, and as I begin to tie this thing together, Cory Booker, in a very overly centered white male structure, which is why I encourage people to read this book, The Agenda, because what Millhauser does is remind us of something. When you talk about a 68-1 voter imbalance between a place like Wyoming and a place like California, what he doesn't say, which I'm going to say, is that the U.S. was set up as a white settler project to maintain minority rule. It's almost as if those enslavers, Madison, Jefferson, Washington, Franklin, who had his, was against slavery eventually, but come on, bro. It's almost like they all looked forward, saw Lin-Manuel Miranda coming and said, let's set this up so we can sing and dance and still run his ass. So this is what we'll do. Every state gets 2 senators, right? Well, how far do you want this United States thing to go? Shit, how far is the land? Ain't nothing out there but the savages, meaning the non-human Indians. So we could take, you know what? Let's not even talk about that. These 13, where we gonna start? Then they have a family fight. The Southerners in the South is like, well, okay, 2 senators per state. We can do the math. We'll still kind of run shit because most of these states in the South. But you're going to have a lower chamber, right? Yeah, the House of Representatives. Yeah. Okay, so how we going to pick that? Well, we'll pick that on population. Okay, well, I want to count them niggers. Hold up, Chief. If you count them, y'all going to run the thing for the rest of the enterprise. Why? Because you got all them black people, you got millions of them. Well, 750,000 by the census of 1790, 3 years after they ratified the Constitution, but you get the point. So they came up with a number. We'll count 60% of them. That's the so-called 3/5 compromise. So the upper chamber, however, you got to pass a bill through 2 chambers and go to the president. They got 3 branches of all, right? This is what we learn in school, right? You got executive, legislative, and judicial, right? Oh, parenthetically, we're old enough to remember Schoolhouse Rock. Young people not. Unless their parents showed it to them or they saw it on the internet. So I showed my class, because we were talking about manifest destiny and settler-colonialism in the context of the laws of the states as they moved west. So we looked at the compromises of 1820 and 1850. We looked at the original Fugitive Slave Act, which is in the damn Constitution, 1787, so forth. And I said, but you know what? Before we go back to these statutes, I'm going to give y'all the shorthand they gave us when we were sitting eating our cornflakes or puffed rice or cream of wheat or whatever on Saturday morning when there was only 3 television channels and TV went off at night. And then Saturday morning, if you missed it, it wasn't no VCR to record it. So we sitting there watching this on our black and white TV in Nashville, Tennessee, sitting in the front room, bunched up around the heater watching this. And I pressed on YouTube, Elbow Room. You remember that one? Elbow room, elbow room. Got to get you some elbow room. It's the West or bust. Yes. In God we trust. There's a new land out there. And so they looking west. The traders, trappers, and the settlers, the politicians and the peddlers, they got there by any way they could, any way they could. And then so they show this white family on the covered wagon, cartoon white family going away. And then they say there were plenty of fights to win land rights. And then you see an arrow come and shoot the white boy through his cowboy hat, and the wife got the Bible clutching it with the baby, and they in the covered wagon. Then you see the covered wagon keep going, and you'll see the forest disappearing, and the squares start forming as they put their little houses, cabins in the middle. It said, "The West was meant to be. It was a manifest destiny." In other words, and after it was over, I said, "What y'all think?" And in the chat, it was like, "Wow. Wow, WTF, WTF." I said, this is what we learned. God told us to get the land. Corey, Brother Booker, Senator Booker. This shit is a criminal enterprise, bruh. Every time you say we are better than this, I know what you're trying to do. And you're too smart to believe that BS. Including that fake accent John Kennedy, who you call brother. I get that, but you're defending the sister. But you understand that patriarchy is the reason that you think you have to, quote unquote, defend somebody who's more qualified to be anything than all of y'all in the room. And number two, it's the reason why we praising you for doing it. Do y'all understand? Hold on. Boy, when I asked my students what they thought, and they deconstructed that context, and we started talking about patriarchy and whiteness, and the fact that this sister is sitting there more qualified than everybody breathing in the room to ask her a question. And the fact that we then say, see, he stood up and I was so proud and I started crying tears. I thought about Neely Fuller. Everything you think you understand will only confuse you if you don't understand white supremacy. So again, when we're talking about the agenda, when Millhiser writes, he talks about this imbalance. Please understand that as they added states to this criminal enterprise, they kept the two senators in the upper chamber, which always going to have a check on the lower chamber. So even if you expand voting rights, it's still got to get through the Senate. And the majority of those states that are going to be problematic have very few people in them. They have put in place an apartheid state that is set up for white minority rule before there was even enough people to think about white minority rule beyond enslavement. So here we are in 2022 with white minority rule. The only shot you might have of breaking white minority rule is to reconstruct the federal legislature or move to those places where they got two senators and not enough people who are going to be for humanity as opposed to whiteness, unless they suppress your voting rights. So on that same Wednesday that everybody cheering about Cory Booker, the Supreme Court handed down a case in Wisconsin, per curiam, that says they have so gerrymandered the white nationalist party in Wisconsin. They have so gerrymandered the legislature, the state legislature. They got about 99 seats in the state legislature. Republicans control 2/3 of them, even though when people vote, it's about 50-50 in terms of who votes Republican, who votes Democrat. But the seats are 2/3 Republican because they gerrymandered the packing and cracking thing. In Milwaukee, around in that area, they figured out a way using redistricting maps that the Supreme Court of Wisconsin, taking its cue from an independent redistricting committee that was set up by the Democratic governor Evers of Wisconsin, recommended, here is how you got to redraw these lines to be more equitable, not to lean one way or the other. Supreme Court of Wisconsin, state Supreme Court, said, okay. It added one seat that will now tip black to the one seat that was already there in that area. 2 seats. Still doesn't change the supermajority the white nationalists have. The Supreme Court of the United States, the same day, Cory Booker, he defended Ketanji. Did y'all see what the Supreme Court did while he was talking? What? No, I just found out about Ketanji Brown Jackson. Right. Do you know how long we've been talking about Ketanji Brown Jackson? Did you know she was on the short list when Obama made that stupid ass mistake and nominated Merrick Garland? Did you know that the reason that she has been advanced is because for this moment we're seeing this week? Did you know that? I mean, no, you didn't know, right? Of course you didn't know. But the point is that because nobody pays attention. But what we're saying, the ruling they ruled, the Supreme Court intervened, injected itself into state politics, invalidated, told the Supreme Court, the state Supreme Court of Wisconsin, go back and pick another one of them plans that commission gave y'all. What's their rationale? Oh, they got this wild ass theory. In fact, he don't really talk about it in here. This is because this is how they're attacking voting rights. What they're saying is that this was the Arizona case, which he does talk about, the Brnovich case that was in Arizona. This is after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died, and the Supreme Court said they're going to hear these cases. Then they put the handmaid on, rushed her through right quick. Thoroughly unqualified. She was on the federal bench for a year, not even. She never tried a case, never argued before the Supreme Court, you know, but hey, she white. Well, she's a white woman, which means in the hierarchy of humanity, white man, white woman, everybody else. But which is probably helps you understand the handmade philosophy. But you know, I'm not going to say less about that. But the point is that what you see, what he's talking about here is that you restrict voting rights, because as the numbers get beyond your capacity to run your criminal enterprise from a minority voting limit, you got to shrink the number of voters. But what they were able to do in Wisconsin is elect a Democratic governor who wants to play fair. Let's redistrict using this nonpartisan commission. They can't even untangle the supermajority the white nationalists have built in the legislature. But what the Supreme Court has begun to do, advancing this ass theory that is fringe to begin with, that the federal Constitution leaves decisions on voting to the states, but the state legislatures, so that even the state courts cannot intervene on the decisions of the legislature. That's their theory. It wasn't directly in play in the case they decided this past week, but it is at the center of the white nationalist exercise in controlling how these people are allowed to block voting rights. It's what was at play in Virginia. It's what was at play in North Carolina. It's what was at play in Wisconsin. It's what's going to be at play in Georgia as these state legislatures create these crazy rules. One drop box in Harris County. Houston got 150 trillion people in it, but you got to drop your ballot off on foot. Well, my mom want to vote and she's in the car, so they drive up. Hell no, you got to walk up to it. And if you pass out water in Georgia, who coming up with all these damn rules? Get to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said we ain't got to know that. Why? That is the state legislature. Well, the court in the state said it was illegal. Yeah, but we're going to intervene. But it's a state issue. No, ain't no such thing as a state issue, because LAW means POWER, and we can count. We got a 6-3. We're going to run a Boston on y'all ass. And that, he's going to walk through it. Now, the point I'm trying to make in all that context, I'm sorry, Senator Booker had to do this, brother, but somebody has to, because everybody crying tears helping you defend a black woman, and you spinning a fantasy. I mean, between Santa Claus and the United States, I'm going to pick Santa Claus every day if I got to pick a fantasy. It's going to be black, though, because I definitely don't want to give credit to a white man for coming down the chimney for stuff my mama and them bought. But it'd probably be a black woman with him, man. Maybe Ms. and Miss Claus. If I got to come with a fantasy, you understand. But what Ian Millhiser talks about in the agenda, he says, you know, there are 3 branches of government, but increasingly, in fact, let me just read this. I don't want to mess him up. He says this, from 2011, I'll just read from the back of the book. When Republicans gained control of the House of Representatives until the pandemic made inaction untenable, Congress enacted hardly any major legislation outside the tax law President Trump signed in 2017. Pause. All these black people talking about Ketanji Brown Jackson is a sellout because she related to Paul Ryan. Ketanji Brown Jackson's husband is the brother of Paul Ryan's wife. Now, there's
his sister. Sister married to his twin brother.
Yeah. Right. So there's an indictment there, and we'll get to that. But it has more to do with Black Ivy than it does with any judicial decisions, because I guarantee, let me not guarantee, I suspect, let me amend that because I'm trying to control my own. I suspect that the people saying that haven't read one word of one sentence or one paragraph of one page of any ruling Ketanji Brown Jackson has made in her entire ass life. I suspect. She's against black women. Did you read the Lockheed case? I did. You understand the settlement Lockheed reached with those black workers who engaged in that class lawsuit that she wouldn't certify the class was that if you all agree to this, nobody black can bring no discrimination lawsuits at this company from now on. A charitable reading, and there's legal arguments to debate. Now, I'm not saying it's not, but Kenneth Mackinnon wrote an op-ed in the Washington Post a couple of days ago making this point. There's one way of reading Ketanji Brown Jackson's decision in that employment discrimination case. In fact, the most charitable reading, because she is kind of like a balls and strikes. Understand, as Angie Porter walked us through, she walked it through with you. Y'all sitting there talking about it, and we walked through it. The thing I do with Rolling the Black Table. What we talked about and what she led us through is, and she's clerked for federal judges, a couple of them, district court judges, which is what Ketanji Brown Jackson has been, except for these couple of opinions she's wrote at the Court of Appeals, which is an appeals court. They don't run trials. They read briefs. They have oral arguments for maybe 30 minutes, 15 minutes apiece, and then it's intellectual work in that regard, which is why all them sitting all this stuff when Ted Cruz, you're letting child pornographers. Boy, don't let me come see your computer. Raphael. Shit. The first thing to fall is cat with no chin. So don't, I mean, while I was growing up, man, they used to the cats that talk about a thing all the time. That's the thing they want the most with their whole heart. But we're gonna leave all that aside. That's governance conversation we have. Anyway, so you Holly, young Josh, and Tom Cotton, y'all sure be obsessed with that. Ain't this the same judge that sentenced that boy that drove up, that white boy that drove up from North Carolina with that gun, talking about he gonna blow up the pizza place over on Connecticut Avenue, Pizzagate? Ketanji Brown Jackson was the trial court judge that gave him 4 years. Now the prosecutors went 4.5, I think. I think that's what Belethea Watkins, we were talking about that the other day too. Belethea said, I think the prosecutor wanted to give him 4.5. She gave him 4. Y'all wasn't mad about that. Why? Because he QAnon. Young Josh, with your fantasies, always talking about pedophile children. I'm curious. Chinless. But anyway, the point is that Brown Jackson, overwhelmingly, the hundreds of her cases were trial court cases. Then you get the Court of Appeals. Then you get the Supreme Court. What they're setting up in this context, he's about to say, here we go. In the same period, so in other words, y'all gonna criticize Ketanji Brown Jackson for being a sellout, at least go get the cases and point out where she sold out so we can have an intelligent conversation. Or keep that other stuff on the other end of the spectrum. Don't bring that stuff here. He continues, he says, in the same period, the Supreme Court dismantled much of America's campaign finance law. That's the one we should be paying attention to. Yes, Shelby County versus Holder was held 2013, but that damn Citizens United,
yes,
that's the one. That's where John Roberts told these white boys, y'all can just straight by elections. Please understand, we got to pay attention. Let's continue. It says, severely weakened the Voting Rights Act, permitted states to opt out of the Affordable Care Act's Medicaid expansion. This is what Martin Luther King trying to tell you, poor white people. Y'all want your whiteness or your teeth? You can't have both. and held that every state must permit same-sex couples to marry, meaning there were some other decisions that went on the other end of the spectrum. But this is the point he's making. He says this powerful unelected body. So there are 3 branches of government, only one of them is unelected. And guess what? This is what he says. This powerful unelected body, now controlled by 6 very conservative Republicans, has and will become the locus of policymaking in the United States. While we was arguing about Jay-Z and Beyonce, while we was arguing about hashtag this or that, while we arguing about ADOS and that, these white nasties had a 50-year plan, really beginning with the Voting Rights Act of 65, to make sure that the framework their grandparents, I'm sorry, Cory Booker, George Washington, you're not my dad. I know you're Cory Booker's dad, but you're not my dad. You understand? You're not black people's dad. And Cory, I pray, bro, that that's just a performance, because you know that ain't your daddy either. I know you was talking to Ketanji, and yeah, you talking about grandparents and your great grandmother, and she reminded you of your mother. But if she reminded you of your mother for real, you'd punch these white boys in the face. Dick Durbin not gonna do it. He did the best he can, but he a white man. He believes in colleagues and all this other stuff. You know, now John Ossoff sound a little bit like Martin Luther King. You understand what I'm saying? But we know what they call John Ossoff in Georgia as they begin to pare back those voting rights. And it ain't pretty, because see, John Ossoff's whiteness is also compromised. He's Jewish. See, y'all gonna understand about these racists one day. Cory, stop mixing. You're mixing many things. And as Malcolm said, in a suit, you're speaking a language they don't understand. But what he is saying, Millhauser is saying, is that unelected body, while we talking about this other stuff, the court has been fixed so that they can maintain this settler enterprise. You're taking power from the state legislatures and reserving it for yourself. Are you the president of the United States? No. Are you the federal legislature, legislative branch? No. Who are you? I'm the courts. Nobody voted for you. Yeah, when you voted for the president and the executive, the legislature, you voted for me. Nah, my vote was suppressed. I mean, people, I ain't voting. It don't make no difference. Okay, tangibles. Okay, ADOS. Okay, FBA. Let's pause and calm down here for this reason. Your nativism is informed by a flawed logic. There's no such thing called a nation called the United States. There's no concept. You're appealing to something that doesn't exist. There's no legal argument you can make that will supersede whiteness. This is what Derek Bell was trying to tell y'all. And while Ted Cruz is like, can a baby be racist? I'm a Hispanic man. Can I be an Asian American man? What is a woman? He then brings up a litany of people. Well, here are the books that are most popular at Georgetown Day School, and you're on the board. So, and I'm saying, I hope somebody goes out and gets this book that he held up. Richard Delgado and Gene Stefanczyk, the third edition, Critical Race Theory, an introduction. It's a nice one volume. If you want to read about critical race theory, Ted Cruz show you what to read in his damn commercial that he didn't know he was making. You bring up Derek Bell in your haste. Hillbillies like that Beverly Hillbilly Marsha Blackburn in the state I was born in. I left the house a couple of times this week. One time was to go down and meet with some young people who are undergraduates at Vanderbilt University. And let me just say to them, my niece, I say my niece because her mother and I and my brother, we were all in school together at Tennessee State. So they came to, my mother's rituals funeral, and that's where I met her. And so, I call her my niece. She, her mother and father, very proud of her. She's at Vanderbilt. She's the chief of staff of Vanderbilt student government. That was an unthinkable thing when I was their age. I was so glad to meet with all these young people. It's like 7 or 8 of them black kids from Vanderbilt up to lobby on Capitol Hill as part of the Slave Economic Concern, Southeastern Conference, lobbying day, Capitol Hill. So they came to D.C. One of the young sisters is actually coming to Howard Law School in the fall. So I got to sit with them for a couple of hours, sitting there in Union Station, walking around, just sitting, talking. I was glad to meet with those young people. But, they got a chance. They said they saw, and Marsha Blackburn took a picture with them and scurried away back to whatever hovel they have her in, which, of course, she was safe on January the 6th. But so I asked them, I said, well, how was she? They said, well, she took a picture, and next thing you know, she was gone. I said, okay, she got her Negro quotient for the year. And she don't even realize that you 8 young people right here, y'all some of the finest human beings on the planet. I mean, it was just great to hear a bunch of 19, 20, 21, 22-year-olds process what they saw, because they were on the Hill at the same time as the testimony. So they could see what was going on outside the Senate office building, around in the environment. And I tell you, this is why we have to have governance spaces. Another reason. We've got to be able to process this kind of stuff, because you don't want to be 19, 20 years old trying to make sense of a world that don't make no sense by yourself. You need some people who've been around the block. But, Ted Cruz and them so determined to stuff Derek Bell in their mouth that, they may have missed where Ketanji Brown Jackson talks about being in her house in Florida when her daddy was studying, and this book being on the table. This is Faces at the Bottom of the Well, The Permanence of Racism. And one of the things Ketanji Brown Jackson says, and I didn't know Derek Bell well, but I did know him. This came out in 1992, 2 years after I graduated from law school. First time I met Derek Bell, in fact, he had come to Ohio State to read from his book, And We Are Not Saved. And he was actually introduced by a brother who's an ancestor now. They're both ancestors, in fact, Dave Williams, who was a federal income tax professor, who the students, these young people at Vanderbilt, did not know, because he made transition. He retired and made transition a couple of years ago, right at COVID, and right before COVID. But he's a legend at Vanderbilt because he came to Vanderbilt with the chancellor at Vanderbilt, Gordon Gee, at the time, who had been at Ohio State when we burned the American flag and held Gee and his whole administration hostage the day after they let them cops go to beat Rodney King, and said, here are our demands. And when Gordon Gee left being president of Ohio State and came to Vanderbilt, he took Dave Williams with him, who was a professor of law at the law school, black guy from Detroit, tax lawyer, brilliant brother. And Dave Williams and Gordon Gee were the ones who reimagined athletics at Vanderbilt and diminished it from, SEC kind of stuff to nobody gets any favorites. It's very interesting. So the young people say, oh, you knew Dave Williams? I said, Dave Williams is my professor. He's a legend at Vanderbilt. I said, yeah, that was before y'all's time. But let me walk y'all through that. And it was Dave Williams who introduced me to Derek Bell, the person. I had read his book. But Ketanji Brown Jackson, who's 51, I'm 56, when she was watching her daddy study, this other book by Derek Bell was on the table. These white boys so rabid, they don't even understand. Why you ask her about critical race theory? She not going to say nothing crazy, because since Robert Bork was nominated by, what was that devil's name? I can't, what's his name? That's nothing. I said, when y'all flying out? They said they's flying out the next day. I said, y'all flying out of Dulles or National? They said National. I said, black people in D.C. don't call it the R word. Do you know 3 of those kids was it 3 or 2? It was 2 of them. Said, my mom said the same thing. They don't call it. They call it National. Right. We don't say the R word. in Washington. That's worse than any other curse word you could make. In fact, the initials for national is DCA. You can imagine what the D stands for in Southeast DC. Shout out to Southeast DC. But at any rate, that guy nominated Senator O'Connor. I'm gonna say his name. Forgive me for cursing. Ronald Reagan nominated Senator O'Connor, first time. His second bite at the apple, he nominated Rehnquist, William Rehnquist. The third bite at the apple, he nominated Antonin Scalia.
Jesus.
And then the fourth bite at the apple, he put up Robert Bork. Got good to him. Bork, nutty ass, sitting in that same DC Court of Appeals Brown Jackson is on. The one they probably gonna put Michelle Childs on. Shout out to Clarence Thomas. Get well soon and retire. Your wife out here tearing up the whole damn country, and your ass won't recuse yourself from nothing. And y'all ask Ketanji if she's gonna recuse herself from the affirmative action case, and then Ketanji sitting in front of y'all says, yes, she will. Come on, Black Ivy. I understand why you had to say it, because you had to make sure that cosplay coal miner from West Virginia didn't get out of line. Did the Toonie Loon say she gonna vote for her? I didn't see what Cinema said.
I didn't see it. She didn't say.
Watch for that Toonie Loon. But I'm telling y'all what, y'all put Ketanji on. See, the vast majority of our people ain't having the conversation we having right now, but they know her name is black as hell. Y'all mess around and don't confirm her. See if you have a country. You're gonna add one of these days. You're gonna strike the right match. One of these days, they don't know about no Supreme Court. They don't know about no McDonnell Douglas. They don't know about no Lockheed Martin. They don't know nothing about no cases, but this is what they know. We see this black woman here who, over the course of a week, has given our young people at least maybe 3 trillion new memes to use unintentionally. The Ketanji Brown faces memes are probably going to make some young black artists rich with exhibition at MoMA or the Biennial or something. And everybody on social media got every kind of meme now. She done made every kind of face to put the middle finger up that y'all can imagine. But at any rate, see if you come on, Toonie Loon, fall in line. Because see, Senator Ben Sass, all shucks, I can't vote for you. He done lined up because he's a white NASA. Don't know what that fool in South Carolina, Tim Mission Accomplished Scott, is going to do, but you can count on Susan. I will confirm Brett Kavanaugh, because after all, I know white maleness than me. But this black girl, I don't know. She's more qualified. She was more qualified than I was when she was in damn grade school. But anyway, the point is, Ketanji Brown Jackson said, I never understood, because as a kid, I saw the black person on the front with a look on their face that didn't look like they was mad, but it says faces at the bottom of the well, the permanence of racism. Didn't quite understand. My point is that she's done everything right. We've been talking about that. She did everything right. She did everything right. She did everything right. Okay. First of all, why do you think it's right? I think the answer to that is very practical. It's right because it's the framework we live in, and that's what you got to do to even get in the room to be disrespected. Okay. I can accept that. And that's why you see the ADOS, the Foundation of Black Americans. I get the passion, the righteous cause, because you're saying, no. I agree with you on that. But that nativism that you have, like Cory Booker's nativism, is informed by a flawed logic. There's no game you can play that is going to get you what you want, absent a full spectrum approach, which is why when I hear the black nativists arguing for reparations and saying, if you're from Jamaica, you can't get it. If you're from Trinidad, you can't get it. Okay, they need to sue whoever they need to sue. Okay, I'm gonna walk down the road with y'all just a little bit. Let's stipulate that, as they would say in the law. Let's just agree on that. Everybody needs to sue the party that had them enslaved. Okay, so Trinidad, Great Britain, right? Maybe even Spain if you want to go back that far. You depend on how you want to do it. Trinidad and Tobago. Jamaica, Barbados, Great Britain. Okay, Commonwealth, let's go to Great Britain. Okay, let's say, Haiti, we ain't paying France no more. They already tried that, and then you Negroes wouldn't buck for each other, and then they assaulted the Haitians. They still assaulting the Haitians. Dominicans, okay, you want to go to Spanish, fine. Cubans, go to Spanish, fine. Okay, but my question to all these black nativists is, why would that then preclude us meeting together in governance formation and coordinating our efforts? That is what the international reparations movement is about. And it's in a context of understanding that none of us have made local progress in our liberation movements without the threat of a unified front. They never have a good answer to that because they haven't thought about it. But being so kind of soaked in the emotion, which I understand, they just run over that right back to, see, you're against it. No. Everybody calm down. We have to think about this. Even if we accept the nativist construction, which has you making lineage arguments, which makes you think you can do it particularly, to the preclusion, by the way, of state formations. They are arguing that the states shouldn't even be involved and localities shouldn't be involved. It should be the federal government. Bring us to the tangibles. I'm right at the edge to say you haven't read a sentence of a paragraph of anything. You're just mad. I get it. In your anger, you would say things like, "We ain't going to organize to elect Gary Chambers. Show us, Harry, what's your own reparations?" Okay, now you're real foolish. This man has smoked a blunt in a campaign ad, burn a Confederate flag in a campaign ad, and y'all mad because he won't say Mother May out of the way. You don't want. Okay, now at this point, this is just dumb. Y'all dumb as hell. But I had to catch myself because I understand that that's the kind of thing that comes with trauma. That's the kind of thing that comes with pain. So I get it. I absolutely get it, but we have to be smarter than that because as we understand, the framework has been set up to have minority rule. This is what Ian Millhiser is talking about. They set it up so that your vote doesn't count in California because the voter in Wyoming is 68 times, it counts 68 times more than the voter in California. It's already set up. It's already rigged. So people say, you're not going to vote? Wait, you're going to hand them the election? Do you understand Louisiana, Mississippi, Georgia, Alabama? Okay, people say Democratic Party is saying we can't win those states. Why? Oh, because you keep chasing them white people. Because as Derek Bell writes here, and in all of his theory, this is the essence of critical race theory, race informs everything. The arguments in this society are arguments between white people. And if they can work it out, they will always form against you. And the ones that won't, the ones that came and watched you talk in that church in Massachusetts, the ones that Dr. King is talking about, and where do we go from here? The ones that Gary Chambers is talking about in Louisiana, that if you just add that small percentage to the majority of black people, if you just go out and vote, we'll put him in the United States Senator, and John Kennedy ain't there to disrespect Ketanji Brown Jackson. You might have a shot at making the cosplay coal miner in West Virginia and the Toonie Loon in Arizona irrelevant. Yes. Because you could do that, and then you could advance some policy that will give poor white people in Kentucky some teeth, that they can cuss you out and call you the N-word with a full set of teeth that was purchased for them by human beings who went to the Senate and fought back the black nationalists and the wholly owned subsidiaries of finance capital. Thanks, Johnny Rob, with 2010, when your 5-4 majority did Citizens United and created the damn ability of billionaires to buy politicians even more. Didn't create it, enhanced it. But here's the challenge. Here's the challenge we have. We are now faced with a moment. We're past the inflection point. It's just about to be over. So now we got to whistle past the graveyard. Ketanji Brown Jackson will be confirmed. We got to believe that. We think that's going to be true. It makes it still 6-3 or 5-4 because John Roberts scared. He let loose the beast. We've talked about this many times. I don't know if he's scared enough to realize that what Millhiser is saying is, in fact, let me just read this to y'all because again, and then I'm going to end for today because I want to make sure we, in nominating these ideologues, they've created this situation that is untenable. But I want to say that he thinks, let me just go to it. It's near the end of the book. He says that the most significant Supreme Court case of the 20th century, and one of the court's best attempts to make sense of our vague Constitution, is the court's decision in United States versus Caroline Products, 1938. Briefly, Caroline Products held that courts should typically defer to elected officials, except when those elected officials target the democratic process itself, such as through voter disfranchisement or by excluding the voices of disfavored minorities. Right. Now, your first semester of law school, if you take constitutional law, they're going to teach you a Caroline Products case, the Caroline Products case, 1938. And I've talked about this before. I'm just going to mention it right quick in passing. Famous footnote 4. That is the dicta. In other words, it's not directly bearing on the ruling of the case, but it is a footnote, which means it can be quoted. And it says that it introduces, this is judge-made law, the levels of scrutiny: strict, intermediate, low-level scrutiny. If a state passes a law and it has a rational interest, then the courts reviewing that law would say, would the state have a reason to pass this? Yeah, okay, then you can't interfere with the state. But there's a level of scrutiny called strict scrutiny, which means what the court says in Caroline Products in a footnote number 4, what's called famous footnote 4 in the law. If it involves black people, if it involves these minorities, we must then look at that same law and ask, is there a compelling state interest? And is the law narrowly tailored enough to meet that compelling state interest? If it's triggered by these categories, protected classes is what they call them. One of the classes they did not name was women, which is why Ruth Bader, Pauli Murray, I'm sorry, I'm quoting the daughter and not the mother. With Pauli Murray and them, and then Ruth Bader Ginsburg overhearing it, then gets the credit because, again, like Elvis, like Eminem, like Jim Crow, you get to, get credit for something you didn't create. Advancing for Women and National Organization of Women, Pauli Murray was a founder of National Organization of Women. I understand, but they thought at least women have intermediate scrutiny. In other words, if women are involved, you got to ask whether or not the state has not a compelling interest, but an interest a little less than compelling, and you don't even ask if it is as narrowly tailored as it needs to be, but you still got to pass a heightened level of scrutiny there. And we just said the law, we just passed the law, okay, no problem. But it's not strict scrutiny. All right, here's the problem. Here's the problem we have. What he's writing here, Carol, what he says is that, let me go on. What he's saying is that, what I just explained to everybody, that is when the Supreme Court would step in. In other words, most of the rest of the time, you got to leave the states alone. That's the Federalist framework. That's the states' rights framework. But if it involves something that's going to undermine democracy, we got an issue. And here's where the attack on the Voting Rights Act is what he writes is insidious. John Roberts and them, Sam Alito and them, the handmaid, Comey Barrett, McGonnell, Gorsuch, and Justice Beer Kavanaugh, and Clarence Thomas, get well soon and retire. They all, Johnny Roberts, they all like, look, voting, that policy is left up to the states. Sotomayor, and I love the way Valethia said it the other day. She said, when Ketanji Brown Jackson gets there, the best thing we can hope is they'll become a dynamic duo. I'm not even talking about Kagan. At least write the dissents. And Sotomayor wrote a dissent in the per curiam decision that they made on Wednesday while Cory Booker was, getting her to cry, talking about how you remind her mother and America's so great and we're going to prove to them. Why you always got to prove somebody your humanity? Don't you know the minute you say, I got to prove my humanity to this other person, what you said is you're not human and they are, and they're the arbiters of what human and not. Come on, bro. Go back and read. Oh, you never read. Oh, did you read? Come on, hang out with us Monday. Because see what Dr. King, in fact, let me just go right here to Dr. King. Because next week, Monday, we're going to chapter 4, The Dilemma of Negro Americans. And we're going to do 2 chapters next week, the Dilemma of Negro Americans and chapter 5, where chapter 5 is where we are going. But this is what Dr. King says. Dr. King says, he says that the dilemma of white America is you got to put yourself in Black America's shoes. You have to sympathize with them and empathize with them. He says you really have to have empathy. You have to understand that. But here's what he says. He says the dilemma of Black people grows out of our oppressed status. He says there's good reason for this assumption that no white person can ever understand what it means to be a Negro, for there is very little in the life and experience of white America that can compare to the curse this society has put on color. This is not, I have a dream. Nah, better read what Dr. King wrote. Bernice told y'all to read what her daddy wrote. He goes on and says, and yet, if the present chasm of hostility, fear, and distrust is to be bridged, the white man must begin to walk in the pathways of his Black brothers and feel some of the pain and hurt that throb without let up in their daily lives. Now, of course, that language is pejorative in terms of gender, but that's the language they used at the time. And apparently it's still the language they use today because Cory Booker felt like he had to defend a Black woman. And Black people was like, yeah, defend the Black woman. I'm like, we are Black people. This gender thing, this is why Dr. Watkins, y'all got to hear Valethia on this. But anyway, he says this, the central quality in the Negro's life is pain. I understand what y'all feeling, ADOS, FBA. because we all feel it. The central quality in the Negro life is pain. Pain so old and so deep that it shows in almost every moment of his existence. It emerges in the cheerlessness of his sorrow songs, in the melancholy of his blues, and in the pathos of his sermons. The Negro, while laughing, sheds invisible tears that no hand can wipe away. Cory Booker, Ted Cruz don't deserve to see Ketanji Brown Jackson cry in public. I know what you was trying to do, bruh. Ben Sass don't deserve to see Ketanji Brown Jackson. What they deserve is an ass whipping. What they deserve is a senator that will rain natural black fire on their asses. Not, oh, my brother Kennedy. I understand the enthusiasm, brother. I understand we all want to be human in the world, but that ain't the world we live in. Dr. King says in a highly competitive world. The Negro knows that a cloud of persistent denial stands between him and the sun, between him and the life and power, between him and whatever he needs. Negro life. He then quotes Paul Lawrence Dunbar. Did y'all understand that they are calling in bomb threats on the babies today? We're going to show them. I'm going to show them something that's going to back them up off me. Stop smiling so damn much. And that's somebody who smiles all the time. But some places, I'm not smiling. They're not going to steal my joy. Yeah, my mama used to say that all the time. Mama also knew when to bare her teeth and when not to. He quotes Paul Dunbar. He says, to quote Paul Lawrence Dunbar, he says, this is Dunbar, a crust of bread and a corner to sleep in, a minute to smile and an hour to weep in, a pint of joy to a peck of trouble, and never a laugh, but the moans come double, and that is life. Dr. King says, Negro life. See what he did? Negro life! Exclamation point. He says, being a Negro in America means being scarred by a history of slavery and family disorganization. Negroes have grown accustomed now to hearing unfeeling and insensitive whites say other immigrant groups, such as the Irish, the Jews, and the Italians, started out with similar handicaps, and yet they made it. Why haven't the Negroes done the same? Ted Cruz, I'm a Hispanic man. Can I be an Asian American man? No, but you can catch these hands. And then you can be an injured man. You know what I'm saying? Or maybe I can, shit. I mean, your friend Ben Sass called you a jackass and then voted with you. And some of these people who think that shit was real are thinking, see, Ben Sass is an honorable guy. Then y'all get this book, please. Stop playing with these people. Come on, Corey. King says, these questioners refuse to see that the situation of other immigrant groups 100 years ago and the situation of the Negro today cannot be fully compared. Negroes were brought here in chains long before the Irish decided voluntarily to leave Ireland, or the Italians thought of leaving Italy, or the Canadians thought of bringing Ted Cruz ass south of the damn Canadian border and him slipping into whiteness. Some Jews may have left their homes in Europe involuntarily, but they were not in chains when they arrived on these shores. Other immigrant groups came to America with language and economic handicaps, but not with the stigma of color. Above all, no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil, and no other group has had its family structure deliberately torn apart. Dr. King writes, this is the rub. I'm sorry, I'm previewing Monday night. We go be line for line. Y'all better come on if y'all not in there. Y'all, let me wind this up as we bring this to a conclusion, because the name that you and I talked about last night that we haven't brought up yet, we're going to use her to bring the whole thing together. And that, of course, is Constance Baker Motley, who we heard Ketanji Brown Jackson evoke. And again,
can we share?
Yeah.
Yes. Described as being soft-spoken and quiet, but very, very tough. Would you say that's an accurate description?
Well, I read that in the New York Times this morning, and I'm sure they're always accurate.
That's the first, ain't she?
The first, born on the same birthday as Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. Same birthday, same exact birthday, September 14th. Who is she? Should we do a whole you should know?
Yeah, we're gonna have to do a whole you should know about Constance Baker Motley, but we can talk about her a little bit. As you say, born September the 14th, 1921, made transition September 28th, 2005. Let me ask you, did you ever have the occasion to be around her?
Never. And I know that our paths should have crossed. I mean, we're talking New York. What was she? Borough president?
Yeah, she's the borough president. First black female. Wait, first female too.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, powerhouse.
State Senate, New York State Senate.
And they labeled her a communist, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
And Baker Motley was not. In fact, it's so funny. Constance Baker Motley, who grew up in the shadow of Yale, working class parents from Nevis, or people from the Caribbean. So I guess she wouldn't qualify for reparations, right? Fan base, no Black Americans. But I understand the pain. Dr. King understood it too. The pain. I understand the pain. But at least let's huddle up as a group, and then everybody go to their corners and work their strategy. Then we meet up, because that's what the white people do. But apparently y'all want to go it along with your master. Come on now. Anyway, the point, and I told y'all the law don't mean nothing, but it's until, anyway, let me not do this. She goes to Fisk 1941 for a year, then transfers to NYU. So she has an HBCU background, and the Bulldogs of Fisk should claim Constance Baker Motley, of course. Graduates from law school, Columbia Law. Civil rights attorney, just extraordinary. The only woman on the team that argued Brown versus Board of Education and Bowling versus Sharp, decided on the same day. Bowling versus Sharp was the DC case that was part of the cases that became the Brown versus Board of Education. In fact, you know, my copy of her autobiography is in storage. I'm convinced, but I did pull some of the other books that talk about her by some of her colleagues. She was the youngest member of that team to join the Brown. Here was the other youngest judge. He was also a federal judge in New York Southern District, Judge Robert Carter. That's his autobiography, A Matter of Law. Judge Carter. He was with Constance Baker Motley, and when they were arguing and putting together the thing for Brown. Also, I know I pull Oliver Hill, because I just like I read Oliver Hill all the time if I get a chance. Oh yeah, here it is. I love this. You know, I pulled it, but because it's signed. But this is Oliver Hill, who, of course, Thurgood Marshall's classmate, the Big Bang, Brown versus Board of Education and beyond. He talks about Constance Baker Motley. He and Spotswood Robinson. Of course, Spotswood Robinson was the chief judge on that DC circuit, the Circuit Court of Appeals for the District of Columbia. That's where Ketanji Brown Jackson is coming from to be elevated. And when you heard Lindsey Graham bring up Janice Rogers Brown, who was on that court, who they wanted to put on, understand that. Well, I won't get too far into those judicial appointments. Let me not do that. But Constance Baker Motley left the NAACP, Legal Defense Fund, and it's so funny because Derrick Bell sat with Larry Crow for the History Makers. Larry interviewed Derrick Bell. Larry interviewed damn near everybody. And Derrick Bell came to the NAACP Legal Defense Fund in 1960, January 1960. He said when he got there, there were 5 lawyers at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. Thurgood Marshall, of course, who would leave there, become Solicitor General for the United States government by Lyndon Johnson, and then get nominated to be first Black Supreme Court Justice a year after. He said it was James Neighbor III, they call Little Jim. In fact, that's where I met Jack Greenberg, whose book I pulled as well, who worked at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. This is, I've showed y'all his memoir. White dude, crusader in the courts, Jack Greenberg. I met him actually at James Neighbor III's funeral. They had the memorial over at Howard Law School. Derrick Bell says, so Jim Neighbor III, you had Thurgood Marshall, you had Greenberg, Jack Greenberg, you had myself, he had Constance Baker Motley. That was the team. Constance Baker Motley, of course, leaves that civil rights. Constance Baker Motley was Martin Luther King's lawyer. You understand? Constance Baker Motley was the lawyer for this brother who decided that he wanted to go to school. He would be the one to integrate the University of Mississippi. Oh, there's Kwame. There's Kwame Ture in his overalls, but there he is in his suit because he, Black Ivy. But this brother, James Meredith, who still alive, integrated University of Mississippi. James Meredith, here he is walking down the road in Mississippi to march against fear. The Klan shot him in the back. And that led to the last great march of the civil rights movement. When King and all them boys went to the bedside, we talked about that. Kwame Ture writes about it beautifully in Ready for Revolution. But Constance Baker Motley was his lawyer. Then, although I couldn't put my hands on her book that she wrote about herself, and I have several of them because she's given speeches. She's got other things that are written in other books. But I did have this one at hand because it just came out. This is Tomiko Brown Nagin's book, Civil Rights Queen. I encourage y'all to read her book. In fact, I had it on the shelf next to this one. This is the first book Tomiko Brown Nagin wrote, Courage to Dissent, Atlanta and the Long History of the Civil Rights Movement. Brilliant sister, scholar. She's on the faculty at Harvard and Harvard Law School. She's in fact the dean of the Radcliffe Institute for Advanced Study at Harvard, and Daniel Paul, professor of constitutional law. And I'll show you a picture. There's Tomiko Brown Nagin. She's been working on this book for years, almost 500 pages, on Constance Baker Motley, civil rights queen, Constance Baker Motley, and the struggle for equality. And I'll end with this. Constance Baker Motley, and we'll do a longer You Should Know, because her story is so fascinating. 500 pages, and that's somebody writing about her. You got to read what she wrote. And as well, first, and then, if you can. She was nominated by Lyndon Johnson for the district court. She's the first Black woman to serve on the United States federal courts. Article 3 courts, as they call them, as Professor Porter would remind us. And understand that the universe of Constance Baker Motley is vast, because she was truly a representative of the governance structure. You talk to Ann Williams, for example, who served on the United States Court of Appeals. She was nominated and appointed by Bill Clinton in 1999. She says, this woman was my model. You talk to Dorothy Roberts, my friend Professor Roberts, the University of Pennsylvania Law School. She clerked for Constance Baker Motley. Lynn Jones Huntley, who clerked for her. Frankie Freeman, who argued cases with her. If y'all don't know Frankie Freeman, go look up Frankie Freeman. In fact, you can get her book, A Song of Faith and Hope. And I could put my hands on my copy right here. She was once the time the president of Delta Sigma Theta. If Audrey was watching, you gotta say she was president. She was president of the Deltas. She also argued civil rights cases. She was a municipal court judge in St. Louis. She also served on Howard's Board of Trustees for a number of years, but she knew Constance Baker Motley since the 40s. These are the Black women. And every one of those I'm naming, there are many, 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 many more who Constance Baker Motley either apprenticed or brought into this conversation or moved forward. And so when you see Ketanji Brown Jackson, you're not just looking at a heroic individual who colored in the lines, went to Harvard twice. No, you're looking at somebody who is part of a universe of people that Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley and Ben Sass and all them people and John Kennedy and Lindsey Graham and y'all don't, John Cornyn, y'all don't even know, hell, Dick Durbin and them, y'all don't know. Y'all can't see those Black women, and y'all can't see the Black community that they had to sometimes fight in, oftentimes fight in, maybe every day. All my life I got to fight. But it's a governance formation that produces them. And in this case, when she was nominated, finally, Bobby Kennedy really didn't support her. By then, Bobby Kennedy was in the Senate because his brother been killed the year before. Johnson is the president. Johnson nominates her, then calls Bobby Kennedy after he has the press conference at the White House and says, oh, by the way, I'm nominating her. Good work. Kennedy didn't advance her, didn't cape for her. Bobby Kennedy didn't cape for her. John Kennedy ain't putting no Black people on no federal bench. And in fact, Bobby Kennedy was kind of mad at her, according to Tomiko Brown Nagin, because she was a politician and good. Y'all saw that clip Professor Hunter played. Of course, they're all right. I wish I could have met. That's why I asked you that I met. She was another one of those. She just had a presence. You understand? Constance Baker Motley, man, and she had that New York accent. She almost said Adam Clayton Powell sound like her.
Mm-hmm.
They got that kind of, man, y'all don't be bullshitting with these people right here. James Eastland was the chair of the Judiciary Committee at the time that she was nominated. And James Eastland, 1966 is when she was nominated, actually. Eastland held up her nomination for months. This is back when they would just nominate people and appoint them. This thing really didn't go off the rails, Supreme Court appointments, till Bork, till the gladiator invader of Grenada tried to sue Robert Bork on. And I should probably close that loop on that as we end with Constance Baker Motley. So he got 4 bites at the apple. That's when he couldn't get Bork, so he got Anthony Kennedy. And that's where Anthony Kennedy came from. Now, Jimmy Carter got no picks before, no Supreme Court picks, but he put the most federal judges on the bench in a 4-year presidency at the time of anybody. He stoked the bench. A lot of those Black judges came from Jimmy Carter. Then after Reagan came Bush, David Souter, who's still alive, who went left on him. What the hell? Then Clarence Thomas, won't make that mistake again. Bill Clinton, Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and Stephen Breyer Breyer's coming off, Jackson's coming on. And then the white nationalists with their electoral college stacked like their Senate run the Boston. George W. Bush. He wanted to put the black woman on, Janice Rogers Brown, and people were like, hell no, she black, but no, we ain't getting another Clarence Thomas. That's why Lindsey Graham was bringing her name up, and also Michelle Childs, like he would vote for Michelle Childs. You're just trolling, Lil Lynn. Lil Lynn, go home. Bush can't get that, so what does he do? John Robert, Samuel Alito. He also, remember Harriet Myers? He went to put the White House counsel on there. They put any old random ass unqualified white person. Ketanji Brown Jackson, there's nothing she could do to be qualified. She's a black woman, and she's a black woman who's not in their pockets. After that, Obama. Obama had 3 picks. He got Sotomayor. He got Kagan. He got Merrick Garland. I have looked at her record, and I cannot support her. Shut the hell up, Mitch. Bleat, vote, and die. Go on. Because the world that you live in is a past world. Y'all killed Breonna Taylor, and yeah, you found a shiny young Negro, young Dan Cameron, who came in and said, I'm not going to let y'all punish these cops, these paddle rolls that kill this woman who looks like me, because I ain't got nothing in common with her. And he's right. A community is the one you choose to build. Dr. King is trying to tell you that the one that we claim is one that has been formed together by pain. Howard French is trying to tell you that it comes out of a genealogy that we never got to fully explore. And what Tanya is telling Howard French is, that's right, brother. So fully explore it. And he said, yeah, okay, you're right. Okay. But these publishers, okay, that's why we building what we got now. We got places we don't need to tell nobody nothing but the truth. This is what Carr G. Woodson said. And then coming behind him, here come this boy that, and you got to help me. I know you probably, have you grilled Bragg yet, the Manhattan DA, Professor Hunter?
I have not.
I don't understand what he's doing. And maybe he's saying, y'all could lose this case, so we're not going to pursue it right now. But whatever that inside baseball is, I read the letter to resigning assistant DA. You know,
it's weird.
It is weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it's weird. There's definitely something else going on, but I'm not privy to it.
Me too. And see, I'm glad you said that, because that's a lesson to teach. Hey, y'all, you can't rely on white-facing commercial media or social media to inform an opinion. There's something else going on in that. They're not going to bag Trump. Letitia James can't get him on the criminal side. Well, why can't Letitia James? That's civil court. The Manhattan DA is the one. Vance was advancing it, and then Bragg gets elected. He's a black dude, yeah, and maybe he's saying, "Oh, you don't know." Because see, these same white liberals that Dr. King just finished roasting and toasting in chapter 3 of Where Do We Go From Here? I Have a Dream. Hey, put that on pause. Read what the man wrote just before y'all put a bullet in his head. He telling y'all, these white liberals. So why this guy? I'm resigning, and everybody mad at Bragg. I'm like, look, now let me just step back. What do we have in evidence? You got a strong case against Trump for all kind of fraud, right? You got crackerjack prosecutors who say they got him dead to rights, right? You have a black DA who you would think would support them, right? You have the black DA saying maybe the evidence isn't as strong as it could be, right? You got the white boy saying, I quit. Why? Because we can win this, right? And then you have 400 years of black people being set up. Okay, my conclusion, something else is going on. And we need to know more. Your conclusion, watching Rachel Maddow or reading the New York Times or just watching Twitter or Instagram. See, what's wrong with that black man? Okay, see, here's the problem. You see the problem? The problem is we don't know enough yet. But to continue, James Eastland was the chair of that committee, held this woman's nomination up for months, in a period when nominations used to sail through, in a period where Ketanji Brown Jackson, we got to wait on this Toonie Loon from Arizona to say whether she going to do it or not. Now, maybe Murkowski will vote and would make that meaningless because Kamala Harris gets to break the tie if it's 50-50, but we all on pins and needles in a process that used to be overwhelming. I think Scalia was like 98-0. This Scalia, y'all. And just in case you think this cat who wrote this book is an ideologue, he quotes Scalia. He said the 2 books that I would recommend if you want to read legal theory, one of them Hart Eli's Democracy and Distrust, the Theory of Judicial Review, which I have around here somewhere, but I couldn't dig it out to show it to y'all. The other one, which I also have, but I know it's in storage because after reading it, I just put it in storage, is Antonin Scalia's A Matter of Interpretations, Federal Courts and the Law. Because he said one thing about Scalia, he's a damn ideologue, but he wasn't scared of nobody. And Corey, you can't be scared. Okay, I know you ain't scared. I know you ain't scared of nobody. I know that if we were sitting here together and I was saying this, you'd be ready to fight me. But you got to ask yourself, why would you be ready to fight me and you ain't going to punch Ted Cruz in his racist ass mouth with something other than, you're not going to steal my joy. And got her like this because you evoked her mama who was sitting there. Shout out to her parents who went to HBCUs. Her father went to North Carolina Central. Shout out to her brother who went to Howard. Let's understand, she went to 2 Ivy League schools and she married a white man. If we threw out everybody who married a white man or kissed a white woman or a white man, guess what? It's a whole bunch of people, not me, but a bunch of y'all has got to get out the race. I'm just saying, I ain't mad at you. You know what I'm saying? But a bunch of y'all got to leave if that's going to be the standard. And no passes for Brad Pitt. I know.
Well, Brad Pitt got black people in his family. All right.
We all got black people.
Yeah, that's all.
Literally the mother
in his family. Brad Pitt.
Right. But anyway, let me close this right quick because this is where I want to close. This is chapter, this actually doesn't have a chapter. It's called Legacies. It's the end of Tamiko Brown-Nagin's book on Constance Baker Motley. She's eventually confirmed. She is the Jegna for so many other people in and outside the legal profession, so many black women. Her son, she and her husband, their son, very active. Y'all Google her name or you look on YouTube and see a lot of stuff. Here's where Tamiko ends. Tamiko, I call her, I don't know her. I shouldn't say that. But Professor Brown-Nagin ends. Because when you read good work, you just feel like, if I don't know this person, I need to know them. You know what I'm saying? So I hope you will get her. You got interviewed Tamiko Brown-Nagin, Professor, and I would love to hear the two of y'all talking. This is what she says on page 345, before the footnotes and index. She says, President Lyndon Baines Johnson, hold on to your hats. President Lyndon Baines Johnson did not get to nominate Constance Baker Motley to the U.S. Court of Appeals as he had initially hoped to. The opposition to my appointment was too great. So great, Motley explained years later, that, quote, Johnson had to withdraw my name. He wanted her to go in the Court of Appeals. Now, why do you put superstar justices or judges on the Court of Appeals? Why was Ketanji Brown Jackson put on the Circuit Court for the D.C. Court of Appeals? We know why, right? Constance Baker Motley argued 10 cases before the Supreme Court. Amy Coney Barrett didn't go watch 10 Supreme Court arguments in her whole damn life before she put on the black robes. Come on now. She argued 10. She won 9. The one she lost, Swain versus Alabama, was eventually overturned using arguments she had made in the case that they wouldn't give her that time. She basically 10 for 10 before the Supreme Court. Now watch this. She says, I wasn't wanted on the Second Circuit, she reflected. But watch this. This is what Tamiko Brown-Nagin writes. But even as Johnson made history by appointing Motley to the U.S. District Court, he held out hope of a promotion for her. Work your way up to the Court of Appeals, he advised her. Unfortunately, no such position opened for her during his presidency. What does that mean? In a country full of human beings, instead of where we live, Ketanji Brown Jackson wouldn't be the first woman of Africa. No. See, I trip up because, I be counting Sonia Sotomayor. I know that people don't like that, but you know what? Y'all can.
I claim her too.
Claim her.
Absolutely.
You got to claim her from the Bronx. From Puerto Rico, it's nobody black. Even the sand in Puerto Rico got black blood. How the hell?
Puerto Ricans know, and she knows, and she acts black. She acts
black as hell. If her name was Sonia Johnson, we wouldn't be having this conversation. And how crazy is it that people saying, I'm sorry, Judge Jackson. Okay, I see how that. Yeah, Jackson, her husband name. She got a black name, and people looking at Jackson, and Jackson is that her husband's name? No, it's not.
Yeah, that is right.
Is it?
Yeah, she's Brown Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
Ketanji,
right.
Onika Brown.
Ketanji Onika Brown Jackson. Right. Ketanji Brown. Is there a blacker name?
There is not a blacker name in the annals of history.
Her parents literally picked her African names from an African name book. Come on, y'all. Corey. See, Corey, bruh, I ain't mad at you. Again, I'm not mad. I'm not even criticizing the brother because, Stevie Wonder said, when you believe in things you don't understand, then you suffer. So I understand. We're better than this. But Corey, did you really have to say that the greatest speech ever given on race in the United States?
Yeah, he said that Tim Scott. That's when I didn't even cut that. I was like, did he say Tim Scott gave the best speech on racism?
Corey, I know maybe he just finished jogging. He still had that runner's high and that dopamine, whatever was in his mind. Oh. I'm like, bruh, come. And then he called Harriet Tubman an American. Harriet Tubman, who when she was alive had a price in her head that was higher than anybody. And if there was the FBI, she'd have been the top of the list. She is a Sada Shakur. You call her an American. Corey, you can make up fantasies all you want. But if you got a shot like that, now, of course, he gets all the awards, people crying. I feel like when Booker T. Washington gave that Atlanta Cotton Exposition speech, and in the black press, they wrote the day after he gave that speech in 1895, there were tears at the time from the black people who heard him give the speech. We can't determine whether those tears were tears of joy of seeing one of their race so eloquently represent them, or tears of rage and frustration and sadness for seeing one of their race give their rights away. He couldn't tell, but there were tears. So I wasn't crying. But had I been crying, it would have been the second. I'm like, why are you doing this, bro? So at any rate, Trump got Gorsuch, Kavanaugh, and ACB stealing Gorsuch, which means that, and he makes this point, Millhiser, the unelected branch of government that now sets policy for the country has been installed as a result of presidents who have lost the majority vote in this country over the last 20 years. If you just count the people who voted, Trump's not president. If you just count the people who voted, Bush not president. If you just count the people who voted, but who appointed this court? This is the white supremacist framework we live in. Now, if you want to be a radical and say the whole thing got to blow up, I agree with you 100%. In fact, I would encourage people who want to understand the radical position. I keep going back, like I'm gonna stop. Oh man, I can't find it. Doggone it! I was just reading that book. It's called. Oh, here it goes. Radicals in America. I was just reading. It's actually very good. Howard Brick and Christopher Phelps. It's a good book if you want to start on the notion of a left, the U.S. left since the Second World War. You should read this book. It's Cambridge University Press. It came out in 2015. It's actually an excellent piece, and it gives you a sense. Radicals are always going to say the whole thing got to fall. I agree. Phelps and Brick say, yes, that's going to be the radical position. But understand it's always going to be on the margins of the world as it is. It's going to drive people moving toward that. It needs to be put back together differently. And as we'll talk about Monday night, you got cats like King who would share that same opinion, but because they are trying to work in the world as it is to get to the world we ultimately want, they understand everybody not coming. Everybody's not coming. And you got to ask yourself, is it most courageous to be out on the fringe and saying, oh, this must be destroyed. Capitalism must be destroyed. Or is it capitalism must be destroyed? Now I'm going to get out here and make sure these people who pick up this trash got a strong union. I got to make sure everybody can vote. And then guess what? You know how we know which is the difficult position? Which one of the police come get? And which one did the police amplify to scare